This whole Mandela effect journey started on August 16th, 2022, when I posted my first Mandela effect video titled 10 Interesting Mandela Effects. The main objective of it was to find obscure Mandela effects that not many people have heard about before and compile them into a list for your entertainment. Since then, the series has garnished a large audience and has stacked up to a total of 124 obscure Mandela effects found all across the internet. This is the full exploration of the entries from the past year and a half in a single video, but don't worry, there's more Mandela effect related content to come. Consider following me on Instagram. My handle is @bookofalice, and same goes for my Twitter. If you end up enjoying the video, subscribe to the channel. That's ultimately what helps the content to keep going. Either way, enjoy the video. Number 1. The bucket list. This is a pretty popular term. A bucket list is a number of experiences or achievements that a person hopes to have or accomplish during their lifetime. Let's say you've always wanted to binge watch Breaking Bad, but you just never got around to it. You put that on your bucket list. But think of the term bucket list. It sounds like an old term some dude in the 1900s made up for a piece of literature and it catched on or something, right? Well, not so fast. Apparently, the phrase directly derives from the film with the same name. Simply put, the phrase was recently invented as early as 2007. This tends to confuse tons of people as they remember using the term before the film was even released. Even searching it up on Google, you find that the saying traces back to 2007, directly referencing the film. Even the movie writer Justin Zackham credits himself as the originator of the term. There's also no online evidence that the term existed before the film was produced. One Reddit user stated, "Heard it in primary school, early 2000s. No idea the exact year, but pretty sure it was around before the movie." I don't know. What do you guys remember about this one?
My freshman philosophy professor assigned this exercise in forward thinking, and he called it a bucket list.
Halo split screen. This Mandela effect surrounds the popular game franchise Halo, specifically the hit classic Halo 2, and the split screen multiplayer option. Now, many people remember being able to play with a friend on the first 2 levels, and are surprised when they come back to replay the game with friends that it was never an option to begin with. Yup, you can't play the first 2 levels of Halo 2 with another player. You can only go through it alone. The Heretic and the Armory are solo player levels, though the Heretic is mainly a cutscene. Though this tends to contradict what many people remember. Some recall playing the armor level with friends and family. If you go search this up on YouTube, you'll find videos surrounding the topic, and the amount of commenters remembering this option being available is astonishing. One comment with 300 likes reads, "I remember playing Armory on co-op and pushing boxes into the elevator with my stepbro to mess with Johnson." A reply states, "Yep, me and my friend used to push Master Guns into the elevator to try and save him from dying later in the mission. I'm having a hard time believing co-op was never a thing in that mission." How do you guys remember this level? Was this ever an option, or are people simply misremembering this one? Fruit of the Loom trademark evidence. So we probably all know this one by now, in reference to the Fruit of the Loom logo. Some people remember it including a cornucopia, though it has never had one in the entire 170-year span of the company's existence. Well, apparently now there's evidence of this. In 1973, there was a trademark filed for a Fruit of the Loom deodorant, and on that trademark filing, you can see that it lists the logo as having a cornucopia, alongside the fruits, though the art above has no cornucopia in sight. Could this one be a Mandela effect or simply an error? There's also this old picture of a wall full of newspapers, I guess, and you can see on the top, there's the Fruit of the Loom logo with the cornucopia as well. I don't know guys, is this a Photoshop or is this evidence? Let me know. Woody's famous line. So mostly everyone and their moms have watched at least one of the Toy Story movies, right? Remember Woody's famous catchphrase, "There's a snake in my boot." That's how it goes, right? Nope, it's actually "there's a snake in my boots," boots being plural, even though it doesn't make any sense. This one has actually got me tripping, as it doesn't make sense there being a single snake in both boots. Take a listen to the original film. Here's the kicker about this one though. This line only exists in the first movie of the franchise. The rest of the films, Toy Story 2, 3, and 4, have the line as it was originally remembered. "There's a snake in my boot," which may be the main reason why people are remembering this wrong. I don't know though. How do you guys recall the line being said in the original movie? Is it boot or boots? The Mona Lisa. Nope, this one isn't about her smile, it's about her black veil. Tons of people are surprised to find that the Mona Lisa is wearing a thin black veil over her hair. Some believe that it wasn't there before, stating that before a certain year, they vividly remember the Mona Lisa simply having her hair out and about, with no thin black veil on her head to be found, claiming that they would have noticed the great detail that can be now seen within the painting. I mean, just look at how precise the veil is painted, looking realistically transparent and showing her hair. I don't know about this one though. It could have just been looked over, as it was a fine detail you have to pay attention to closely. Objects in the mirror. So you know the objects in the mirror safety warning engraved on the passenger side mirrors of vehicles, right? How do you remember the warning? Was it objects in the mirror may be closer than they appear? Well, a lot of people recall it being this way, but it's not correct. It's actually objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. Maybe never appears within the sentence. Some strongly argue that maybe was emphasized, as determining the distance of something using a mirror could skew your perception as it being farther or closer, though it has never been maybe, as it was federally mandated to be written as are closer than they appear, though some swear reading this sign over and over again as a kid during long car rides and remembering it saying maybe, looking like this rare evidence found here. How do you recall it? The Pyramids of Giza. The Pyramids of Giza are massive tombs, right? Though many people remember learning this as a verified fact, no mummies were ever found there, beneath or inside of the massive pyramids themselves. Though there are tunnels and underground passageways underneath the pyramid, no mummies were ever found there. Actually, most of the famous well-known pharaoh sarcophagus, like King Tut and Ramses the Great, are found in the Valley of the Kings. None of them were found near the Pyramids of Giza. The Scream Golden Bracelet. The Scream is the popular name given to a composition created by Norwegian artist Edvard Munch in 1893. The agonized face in the painting has become one of the most iconic images of art, seen as symbolizing the anxiety of the human condition. Munch recalled that he had been out for a walk at sunset when suddenly the setting sun's light turned the clouds a blood red. He sensed an infinite scream passing through nature, which inspired the painting. Now, out of the 5 revisions created, only the most popular version includes a well-defined golden bracelet that many people do not recall seeing before. Now, this painting has been thoroughly studied and written about, trying to interpret its meaning and what it signifies, though for some reason the bracelet doesn't really get that much attention or notoriety for being prominent in the most famous version, with some saying that it was never even there to begin with and that it throws the painting way off. Do you guys recall the Scream having a bracelet? This one just gives me the creeps, and it's not even about the Mandela effect aspect alone. It's just the painting itself. It's dreading. Isaiah 11:6. This Mandela effect is in reference to a Bible passage that some people believe has changed, recalling the passage as stating, "The lion shall lay with the lamb." And tons of people recall this passage being this way. Not only that, there are tons of imagery from Christian artwork depicting lions laying down with lambs, although the Bible passage has never stated that. It actually says, "The wolf will lie with the lamb." To be more specific, it actually states, "The wolf will dwell with the lamb," painting a totally different image. This one baffles me, as I vividly remembered it being, "The lion shall lay with the lamb." Smokey the Bear. This one's a 2-for-1 deal, as there's 2 effects going on here. Well, let's start with the first. We've all heard the saying before, right? "Only you can prevent wildfires," said by the well-known educational animal mascot, Smokey the Bear, who teaches people the danger of wildfires and how you can prevent them. Except, turns out Smokey the Bear doesn't exist in this reality, according to some Mandela effect believers. It's changed. His real name is Smokey Bear, with no "the" in the name, being stated like this in advertisements for years. Some people use the 1952 Eddie Arnold song as evidence of residue for his old name, as seen here. Now the second effect revolves around what he's wearing. Many people remember him wearing red suspenders in commercials and images, though he has simply worn pants without suspenders. Here are some recreations of what people remember, also known as residue evidence in the Mandela effect community. Fruit Loops flip-flop. You may be thinking, I already know this Mandela effect, why is he bringing it up again? Well, trust me, there's a new update to this. How do you remember Fruit Loops being spelled? Is it fruit spelled with 2 O's, or fruit spelled correctly? No funny business. Fruit Loops is spelled with 2 O's, spelled incorrectly for creativity's sake. Though this has tripping tons of people up as they remember already going through this Mandela effect once. Some remember that in the old Mandela effect, Fruit Loops was spelled correctly with the U and the I, and that the Mandela effect was that people misremembered it being spelled with double O's, like this of course. This Reddit user's reaction to the change states, "Wait, WTF, I remember being shocked that it wasn't spelled fruit with double O's, but it is now actually spelled that way. It's a Mandela effect of a Mandela effect. Something that I'd never believe would happen, and it's crazy to think about. It's got some thinking that we're living in a broken timeline. Some think that the correct answer is flipping back and forth in this current timeline." Brazil 9/11 Dragon Ball Z. This one's got a funky title, but let me explain. A lot of people argue that Mandela effects mainly change things within the United States and United States culture, but here's one from a different country. This Mandela effect pertains to people in Brazil on the day of September 11th, 2001. Check out this post of someone from Brazil explaining it. It has a total of 5,000 upvotes. First of all, in Brazil, you typically don't go to school, middle school or high school, doesn't matter, for the entire day. You are in school either in the morning, usually 7:30 a.m. to noon, or in the afternoon, usually from 1 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Every single person who was a kid in Brazil and was not in school in the mornings on the day of September 11th, tons of people remember watching Dragon Ball Z and having it to be interrupted for the breaking news of the attacks. And I mean everyone. It comes up every single time someone asks, "What were you doing when September 11th happened?" Except Dragon Ball Z wasn't even on at the time. Someone checked the airing times and compared them to the time when the attacks occurred, and it was definitely not on. Still, a whole generation of kids is 100% sure that they were watching Dragon Ball Z when the news broke out. Edit. Everyone's saying this isn't real and they edited the timetables after the fact. You sound like conspiracy theorists. Look up Occam's razor. This has been thoroughly discussed by Brazilians on the internet. It's not something new. Like someone else said in this thread, the TV show that played Dragon Ball Z wasn't even aired on that day. Scary Movie 2, Take My Strong Hand. In Scary Movie 2, there's a bit in which Chris Elliott plays a character that has a small, mutilated hand that grosses everybody out, due to the fact that he uses it while preparing dinner for his guests. Now, there's a very specific scene in which someone is hanging right outside the window and struggles to get back inside. This is where the Mandela effect kicks in. Some vividly remember Hansen, the character with a deformed hand, stating, "Here, take my strong hand," when offering to help him. Although he never says this, he simply states, "Here, take my hand." Although some recall reenacting this scene multiple times, with the punchline being that the strong hand is obviously the non-mutilated one, but instead he uses the mutilated one, which people are uncomfortable with. There are even memes depicting him stating strong hand. Let me know if you guys recall it always being this way. This video is sponsored by G Fuel. So G Fuel did a collaboration with some classic horror IPs and sent some over for me to try. I gotta say the Dream Demon Tart Fruit Punch flavor is delicious, and I just love the Nightmare on Elm Street design on the can. You can see Freddy's claws right there. It's got this smooth, sweet flavor to it. Also, this Good Guys Tropical Blood Orange flavor has a nice little tangy kick to it, which I enjoy, and the Chucky graphic on the can looks so cool and just adds to it. There's a Chucky and Nightmare on Elm Street Mandela effect regarding movie scenes coming up soon in the vid, so stay tuned for that as well. The hack and slash citrus fruit punch flavor has a good strong taste to it, and you get the Friday the 13th theme. The great thing is all of these horror cans contain no sugar, so no need to fear for a sugar crash, and they all contain 0 calories, giving you a clean and sustained energy boost. G Fuel was the perfect collab, and I can't tell you how helpful these drinks were when editing my last video. Another great plus is that G Fuel energy formula includes essential vitamins and minerals, and I gotta say this clickbait tub was delicious. The flavor is cherry pomegranate paired up with ice, and it's perfect. It's got 15 calories per serving, and it's sugar free. Same goes for the hype sauce, which is raspberry lemonade flavor. So try them out and head over to gfuel.com and use code VALIS, VALIS, for a discount, or click the link in the description below, which applies the code automatically. You can also find the collab at your local GNC or FYE retail location. Working with G Fuel has been great, and if you want to support me as a creator, go check them out and use my link and my code. Dragons in the Bible. You know, I remember there being serpents, snakes, and other beasts found in the Bible vaguely, but not specifically dragons. That's where this Mandela effect comes into play. A large group of people do not remember there being any mentions of dragons in the Christian Bible, although dragons are mentioned at least 35 times in the King James Version, the most popular version of the English Bible. Some people argued this, saying that they only appeared in the Revelation chapter, the final book of the New Testament, the only apocalyptic book in the Bible that is considered canon. Though this is entirely wrong, as the word dragon appears 21 times in the Old Testament alone. This has left some people confused and searching for an explanation. Some have concluded that these dragons were in fact describing dinosaurs. Same thing goes for the creature Leviathan, found in the book of Job, a massive powerful sea monster that some believe was a sea dinosaur, or factually known as mosasaurs. What do you guys think? Does anyone remember these creatures being in the Bible, or were they added later? Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal. This one is definitely controversial. Most of you guys have probably already heard the song Smooth Criminal by King of Pop Michael Jackson, right? Well, how do you guys remember the bridge of the song going? Is it you've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth criminal? Is that how you remember it? Well, it actually states in the original recording, you've been hit by a smooth criminal. The line simply repeats, nothing different. Although many others remember the word struck being used in the second line, here are some covers of the song made by people that remember it this way.
You've been hit by a smooth criminal. You've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth criminal. You've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth criminal. You've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth criminal.
You've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth criminal.
You've been struck by a smooth criminal.
You've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth criminal.
Though I'd like to note that in some live performances, such as concerts and such, he does appear to say struck by in the second verse, but not in the first verse, which is a subtle and unexplainable change, explaining maybe why some people remember it this way, though some dedicated MJ fans still remember the original recording containing the lyric. Take a listen to the Argentinian concert version at the 3:20-minute mark, more than halfway in.
You've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth criminal.
Converse logos. This one's sure to spark something in the comments, as I see a lot of people arguing about it online already. So you guys know the famous shoe brand Converse, right? And their signature Chuck Taylor model? Well, some people remember the logo facing the outside, like many other shoe brands, in order to advertise the brand even more. Though the logo was always on the inside face of the shoe. Yeah, this has some people tripping out, but not all, as some distinctly remember it being a unique feature to the Converse Chuck Taylor model, due to it facing the inside of the shoe. Spirited Away scene. If you don't know, Spirited Away is a 2001 Japanese anime film written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki, a legend and pioneer in the industry. Spirited Away tells the story of a 10-year-old girl who, while moving to a new neighborhood, she enters the world of kami, spirits of Japanese Shinto folklore, after her parents are turned into pigs by a witch. The 10-year-old takes a job working in Yubaba's bathhouse, the witch's house, to find a way to free herself and her parents and return to the human world. A truly majestic and beautiful movie, I might say. Now, this Mandela effect comes from people in Japan who remember a scene in the movie differently. They regard it as the phantom ending. Believed to be part of an extended cut, people scrammed to find the scene everywhere across the internet, but it sadly led to nothing, as the scene simply didn't exist. In order not to spoil it for you guys, I'm not going to explain the end, but I'll simply say that it ends on the scene where a tunnel is depicted, though most don't remember it this way. They don't remember that it stops there, and they remember that it keeps on going for a few more scenes, as depicted in this Minecraft reenactment of the phantom ending. So where did it go? Is everyone simply misremembering? Some say that it may have been shown only in the theatrical releases, although this was proven to be wrong by the creator Hayao Miyazaki himself. Shaggy's Adam's Apple. Here is something that may surprise you. Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, the franchise, has never appeared with an Adam's apple in all of the canon series and media up to 2021. And you may say something like, okay, maybe he doesn't have it all the time, but it definitely occurs when he gulps or states his catchphrase, zoink, right? Nope. It never appears even when he's swallowing or gulping or saying his catchphrase. None of his designs depict him with an Adam's apple, though for some specific scenes from the show, he is shown swallowing with a lump down his throat, which may be an explanation for some of these Mandela effects, although some argue that it is not the way that they recall his Adam's apple being. They recall a more pronounced and defined feature that's more realistic. I don't know, it seems like people may be confusing the two, but then again, his original character designs don't have a prominent Adam's apple as people remember. Here's a clip of what people remember him like. Dogs playing poker. You guys can probably recall the famous painting of dogs playing poker. Now, do you guys recall them wearing green transparent visors in any of the variations of the painting? Well, you'd be mistaken due to the fact that in most, if not all, popular variations, they are not wearing anything on their heads at all, let alone a green transparent visor as many people recall them wearing. There is in this one variation in which a single dog is wearing a green hat, but it's nowhere close to a transparent visor and they aren't even playing poker. Though this is the closest thing that it may have been confused with. Do you guys recall something similar, or is this just a huge mix-up? SpongeBob had shoelaces. This Mandela effect is in reference to SpongeBob's shoes, and whether or not they contain shoelaces. Well, the simple answer is they don't. Though many people recall SpongeBob always depicted with white shoelaces with the bunny rabbit tie method, this was never the case. His original character design depicted him with plain black shiny shoes, though there is a piece of media where this might derive from. It comes from the Loop-de-Loop song performed by band Ween for the series, teaching people how to tie their shoes, finally depicting a SpongeBob with shoelaces. Hello my baby, hello my... This is in reference to the Michigan J Frog tune, in which he's dancing and sings the famous line, "Hello my baby, hello my what?" What does he say after that? Is it darling? If you thought it was darling, you'd be mistaken. It's actually, "Hello my baby, hello my honey," which tons of people recall differently. I can't find a single version of the song online where the word darling is used instead of honey. If you guys have any versions where this is the case, leave a comment. As one Reddit user put it, I sing this all the time to my pets. Hello my babies, hello my darlings, hello my good time dogs. So yeah, darling for me, I recall it from some old Looney Tune cartoon. I can also recall a frog dancing and doing high kicks while singing it. He also had a top hat, but I could also see Foghorn Leghorn singing it as well. The Last Supper. The Last Supper is a mural painting by Leonardo da Vinci. This painting represents the scene of the Last Supper of Jesus with his 12 apostles, as it's said in the Gospel of John, specifically the moment after Jesus announces that one of his apostles will betray him. This Mandela effect touches on a missing object in the painting, that being a gold cup. Many people remember there being a gold cup right beside Jesus, sitting on the table, although looking at the painting now, there is no gold chalice anywhere on the table. So where is the Holy Grail? It's on the wall. Yeah, out of everywhere, puzzling tons of people due to it being in a bizarre place. Is this new to you guys, or do you guys always remember the cup being on the wall?
And one final question. How many wine glasses are there on the table?
One, the Holy Grail.
Open your eyes. No single cup. No chalice. Well, that's a bit strange, isn't it? Considering both the Bible and standard...
Chucky's catchphrase. Everyone should know this little trucker by now. I didn't enjoy watching him as a kid, but I've grown to love the first two movies of the franchise. They're classics. The new one seems more like a cash grab than anything though. Either way, this Mandela effect covers his famous catchphrase in the film. You probably remember Chucky saying, "Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend till the end," right? Well, in the movie, he actually states, "Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end." None of the movies in the franchise ever depict him saying "till the end," including the remakes and sequels, though lots of people remember the catchphrase including the word "till." making the statement sound less menacing because it's a children's toy. There's even a fan-made film titled Chucky Friends Till the End. Even the superfans got it wrong, as well as other artwork that depicts the line tons of people remember. Do you guys recall it always being this way?
I'm Andy. Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end. Heidi-ho.
Missing emoji. This is in reference to emojis that people believe have now gone missing or have simply never existed. Like, for example, the robber emoji that was never there, and the hiker emoji as well. Now there's more. Some people recall there being an orange traffic cone emoji that tons of iOS users would use, whether that be to capture attention better on a post or warning someone about something. This emoji would supposedly be used. Well, if you have iOS and try to access a traffic cone emoji, you won't find any results. There's also the green peas emoji, which tons of people recall using on iOS, but it's not there, as well as the moose emoji. Do you guys remember any of these, or are people simply confusing softwares? Flintstones flip-flop. I found this one on a Reddit thread discussing flip-flops in the Mandela effect community, which means when something changes, quote-unquote, in our reality, but then reverts back to its correct form, or the form the Mandela effect believers remembered. The comment reads, the spelling of the Flintstones changed to the Flintstones in 2017. Then a guy made a YouTube video about how ridiculous the spelling change was. Then about a week later, the spelling changed back to its original form. I tracked all of this in real time since I became obsessed with the Mandela effect in 2016, after learning about Billy Graham still being alive, a famous preacher that many thought had died earlier than 2018. The guy's YouTube video about the Flintstones is a timestamp of the flip. Let's take a look at the video.
Wow. Let's check it out. Flintstones spelt the wrong way got more hits from 2004 all the way to present. Even present, people have been spelling it wrong. Only people, the majority of the people that got it spelled right was Poland.
Notice in the video he says people are spelling it wrong about Flintstones, even though that it is the way that it's spelled now. This is an interesting find. One reply to the post states, he made a mistake, plain and simple. It did not change to Flintstones in 2017. Had it, people in the Facebook group would have been all over it. It would have been flooded with posts after post claiming it changed, then post after post saying how it changed back. Neither happened, but it is exactly things like this that cause the perception of a flip-flop. What do you guys think about this one? Michael Jackson's chain. Here's another interesting one from the thread regarding Michael Jackson on the Thriller album cover. You know, the one where he's laying on his side? Well, the post reads, Michael Jackson's chain or lack of on the Thriller cover. At one point, he had an unobtrusive but noticeable gold chain around his neck on the cover. Then one day, it disappeared. People even posted about it. I can't remember if it was here or elsewhere, but I remember reading posts about it. I didn't really think much of it until I happened to see the cover again in a record shop whilst sifting through vinyls, and now he did have a chain. This was months, perhaps a couple of years later, after first realizing something had changed. At that point, I actually thought he did have a chain all along, and I must have been thinking he didn't have a chain. Then when I got home and searched the cover again, the chain was missing, and I couldn't find any post about it either. This is one of the most confusing things that's ever happened to me, where I can't offer a definite explanation. After reading that, I thought maybe people are confusing it for a parody album cover, or they're confusing it for a whole nother album, but even the parodies don't display a gold chain. Funny enough, people sell chains of the album cover itself. The Cure, Friday I'm in Love, personal Mandela fix. Imagine listening to the radio one day and hearing a beautiful melody from an unknown artist or band. Then you think to yourself, I hope they don't mind if I take their chord progression and create my own song. And so you do that and it becomes one of your greatest mainstream hits of your musical career. But you start feeling guilty and ask your band members and friends if they have ever heard that chord progression before. But they all say no, which leaves you puzzled. The song you thought you heard and took inspiration from never existed in the first place. Well, this all happened to lead singer of the band The Cure, songwriter Robert Smith, when creating the song Friday I'm in Love. This sort of Mandela effect is different, as it is a memory that only one person remembers, as opposed to a group of people. Surprisingly enough, this isn't the first time this has occurred either. A similar case has happened to Paul McCartney, involving the hit classic titled Yesterday. Paul remembers listening to the melody of the song before and hearing it in loops in his dreams, believing that it was one of his dad's old jazz tunes that he'd played before, so he decided to recreate it in his own style, but it turned out to be completely original and it had never existed. He remembered playing it on the piano for his friends to see if they had heard it before, but they couldn't recall anything familiar to the tune, leaving him stunned. A creepy and similar phenomenon, but funny enough, they created this concept into a movie titled Yesterday. Minecraft discs. This one is on Minecraft, one of the only games I got to enjoy in my childhood, though I gotta say it would often creep me out due to the weird vibes, the combination of ambient music, and the never-ending realm the game had. Anyway, this Mandela effect is specifically about the music discs in the game. People vividly remember the music discs popping out after they were done playing. The post that brought this up reads, Mandela effect regarding a certain feature. Didn't know where to flare this, was hoping maybe a discussion flare, but oh well. Anyways, about a month ago, there was a bit of a debate in my friend group over a supposed feature that used to be in one of the Minecraft versions, most likely console, the feature in question. Half of us said that music discs used to pop out of the jukebox automatically when the song finished. The other half of us said that it was never a thing. After a bit of back and forth, we checked the Minecraft wiki and found absolutely no reference to this being the case on any platform at any time. However, people on the same side of the argument as me vividly remember this being a feature somewhere along the line. Are my friends and I the only ones who remember this once being the case? Some replies read, I remember this, as I was afraid to leave my jukebox unattended for the risk of a despawned disc. I've been playing Java since 2010, but I don't remember when this stopped being a thing, as I do not use the items often/ever. I saw this happen on Bedrock a few months ago. I don't use music discs often enough to have a more recent confirmation though. Yup, I remember that clear as day. Couches in the Bible? This entry is related to the quote-unquote changes in the Bible, whether that be missing scriptures or new words that nobody remembers seeing. Like, did you know that the word couch is found throughout the Bible? Same goes for words like alien, stuff, matrix, and unicorn. Though I think some of these words predate our idea of what we think of them today. One Reddit user replies states, the newest one that I think I've seen was the God's real name is actually jealous. It tripped me the F out. I was watching something about Mandela Fix and that one came up, so I called my mother, who has been an active member of the church since 1999, and asked her if she had ever heard of that, and she quickly dismissed it as baloney, basically until I told her to grab her Bible and read Exodus 34:14, where it actually states that. She agreed that this was never there before, and that was the most insane thing. And also get this, if you look it up on Wikipedia, it states that it was added in 2017, but how does my mother's Bible say that too? And that Bible was passed down from my grandmother, so it's at least 50 years old, maybe even perhaps older than that. The passage he is referring to states, do not worship any other god, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. I don't know, do you guys remember the scripture being in the Bible? Freddy Krueger's sweater. This Mandela effect is controversial and debated online. It's in reference to Freddy Krueger and his iconic stripes on his sweater. Now, do you remember the stripes being red and black? Picture it in your head. If you do, you're in for a surprise, as the colors were always red and green, though some vividly remember red and black and find the green and red combo odd. I got to be honest though, I remember Freddy Krueger having a red and green sweater, but how do you guys remember it? Morton Salt Girl's raincoat. You guys probably know this famous salt brand, right? Depicting a girl in a yellow raincoat and boots carrying an umbrella. It's a very iconic logo, though tons of people aren't remembering it the way it is today. The Morton Salt Girl is actually blonde and is simply wearing a yellow dress, and she doesn't have on rain boots either. Surprising, isn't it? Though I have to say the combination of the same color hair and dress make it look like she's wearing a raincoat, add the umbrella and rain, and yeah, this seems like an easy thing to misremember. What do you guys recall? Jesse's famous line in Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad, the show follows a dad with terminal lung cancer as he goes down a dark path in the drug business, changing him and his family. It's one of my favorite series. Now, do you remember a scene in the show where Mr. White does something smart using his chemistry knowledge and Jesse replies with, "Yeah, science bitch," enthusiastically? Well, sad to say, this line doesn't appear any time in the entire 5-season span of the show, not even once. The closest thing found is a scene where Jesse states, "Yeah, Mr. White, yeah, science," very awkwardly and almost unfitting. Take a look.
Yes, science! Yeah, Mr. White. Yes, science. Yeah, Mr. White.
There's also the scene where he states, "Yeah, bitch, magnets." But it's not the same as people recall. There are even memes depicting him saying this, but the clip doesn't appear anywhere. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle characters. This one comes from open_car_515 regarding characters that I have never heard of being in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. It reads, "Growing up, my brother and I were huge fans of the Ninja Turtles. I have no shame in this, lol. We had all the toys, the games, and I vividly remember us playing the arcade game for hours in an old arcade hall. We met up for a beer today and we're just chatting and reminiscing about our childhood, and we started to talk about our love for the turtles and what dorks we are. Then he starts talking about Wigna and Screwloose. I replied, who? And he looks at me like I'm crazy and proceeds to Google them and show me images of these two characters who were apparently a huge part of the show. Who the are these guys? I've never seen or heard of them before in my life, but apparently there they are. And I'm just confused. Now I'm baffled. I could name everything about the turtles, but I draw a blank on these guys. Am I dense? Or is this a dumb quantum immortality thing, and I've slipped here from a universe where they didn't exist?"
From Playmates.
Well, that's one ugly dude.
It's Scumbug. Muckman is just oozing under the pressure. Wingnut the Turtle's wacky vampire bat buddy and his mosquito sidekick Screwloose decide to wing it, and the roach bugs out.
Talk about batting them around.
Scarface line in the hot tub. Do you guys remember that famous line in Scarface where Tony Montana says something along the lines like, "Another Quaalude, she'll love me in the morning"? Well, he doesn't say that at all. He simply states, "Another Quaalude, she gonna love me again." Though people swear they heard "in the morning" vividly. One guess is that it may be that people are confusing the line with another film titled Friday that quotes it differently. Take a listen.
Avina! That's okay. She'll be back. Another Quaalude, she'll love me in the morning.
Though some swear that they haven't even seen this film and still remember it this way. Cat in the Hat infomercial scene. This is in reference to the live-action adaptation of the story, which some hate but I love. There's a scene in the movie in which a cat does an infomercial on a device that creates cupcakes out of anything. The Cat in the Hat keeps on doubting that the machine could in fact create cupcakes out of anything, to the point that the infomercial cat gets mad and threatens the cat's tail, stating, "I'll cut your tail off, and it will look like a bloody accident." Well, upon rewatching it, I found that he actually doesn't say that. He actually states,
Anything.
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 I'll get you, and it'll look like a bloody accident. Anything. Now, let's see.
Yeah, he never mentions cutting off his tail, though he does accidentally chop off his own tail. Do you guys remember this line, or is it simply misremembering? Reddit user Excellent Pumping states, "I have seen this movie at least 20 times. It was one of my favorites as a kid. My brother and I used to literally act out this specific scene. I'm so sure it said, 'I'll cut your tail off and I will make it look like a bloody accident.' Please tell me I'm not the only one who thought it said this." Twin Towers Hotel. Do you guys remember there being a hotel at the foot of the World Trade Center's Twin Towers? Well, tons of people don't and are amazed to find out that it was destroyed beyond repair as a result of the September 11th attacks, due to structural damage caused by the collapse of the Twin Towers. The Marriott World Trade Center was a 22-story, 825-room hotel, though the building was heavily underreported by media coverage at the time, even though it fell victim to the attacks on September 11th. Some documentaries don't even mention the building. I wouldn't really categorize this one as a Mandela effect, as there was another building, World Trade Center Building 7, which collapsed as well and went underreported, leading to confusion on how many buildings actually collapsed on the same day. Coraline missing, bad/cliche ending. This is similar to the Spirited Away Mandela effect I discussed in the last video, where people remember an ending that never occurred, a quote-unquote phantom ending. The post recalling this ending states, "I remember an after credits scene from Coraline that apparently doesn't exist. I recently rewatched Coraline for the first time, basically since it came out, and I was waiting for a specific after credits scene that never came. I have a vivid memory of the movie ending in the exact same way, but after the credits, the camera returns to the old well and zooms in until the other mother's hand pops out of the well, holding the key to the door. I was super confused when this never came and kept scrolling back and forth through the credits trying to find it. I even searched on Google and YouTube to see if maybe this was a deleted scene that doesn't exist in the streaming versions of the movie or something, but couldn't find anything. My boyfriend had no idea what I was talking about, but I had asked a bunch of my friends, and some remember the exact same scene I'm talking about, but cannot find evidence of it anywhere on the internet. Edit. 2 things I need to clarify. 1, I originally saw the movie when it first came out on DVD, but never in theaters, so it wouldn't be explained by it being only in the theatrical release, I think. It would have to have at least been on DVD. 2, I know that there is a scene earlier in the movie where the hand escapes the door. I'm not getting them confused. I rewatched the movie last night before I made the post. One reply states, what's weird is I remember the quote-unquote bad ending, and when I rewatched Coraline, I remember expecting it to happen, but instead there was no more activity after the hand fell down the well or something. Mario Kart change. I have no personal experience with this effect, as I never played Mario Kart when I was younger. I've only recently started playing it, and let me tell you, it's pretty addicting. So far, I've only gotten like first place twice though. Either way, this Mandela effect has something to do with the particular road you race on, that being Rainbow Road, on Mario Kart 64 specifically, a notoriously hard road to race on for some, as many fear of falling off due to the turns and high speeds. Now, it turns out that Mario Kart 64's Rainbow Road is actually a lot easier, as some are surprised to find out that the road has railings to keep you from falling off. Yeah, this comes as a shock to some that vividly remember falling off the map and raging. One reply to this effect states, whoa, this is weird. The way I remember it was that only some short sections had rails and the rest of the track didn't have any. I looked up images and now the whole track has rails. What the heck, this might be a new Mandela effect. I'm still open to the idea that I could be misremembering though. Another reply clears things up by stating, the Super Nintendo version has no rails and is so much harder, as is the whole game. It's still very easy to get knocked off in the 64 version, but not consistently. How do you guys recall this road being? Chuck E. Cheese's flip-flop.
Know what you can do with your report card at Chuck E. Cheese's?
This entry is regarding the famous establishment that served some top-shelf pizza and had games that kids could play, also known for their creepy animatronics, though that's a personal opinion. Some quite enjoyed those things apparently, even inspiring someone to create a $1 million franchise because of it. Anyways, this Mandela effect is specifically about the name of the establishment. Some people remember the original name of it being simply Chuck E. Cheese, and never Chuck E. Cheese's, though others swear that it had always been Chuck E. Cheese's. The thing about this one is that the newest logo was indeed changed to simply Chuck E. Cheese, rebranding itself without the apostrophe that was once there. Basically, people are confused with this one, as they believe that the name has been flipping back and forth. One Reddit user's response states, it's been both for a number of years now. Different advertisements and even logos have it in different ways. Chuck E. Cheese and Chuck E. Cheese's are both correct. And down to one that actually surprised me, the King Tut sculptures. Okay, when you think of King Tut sculptures and other depictions of him, do you recall him like this, with a simple headdress containing a cobra right in the middle of the forehead, nothing else? Well, if we take a look at the sculptures and other artifacts once again, some would be surprised when they find a cobra and vulture are side by side on his forehead, as some only remember a cobra being in the center of his forehead. How do you guys recall this one? I'm thinking some may be confusing it with another sculpture which doesn't depict him but instead someone else, but since we're not all archaeologists, we're bound to confuse some things with other things. Or the timeline did in fact shift and I'm wrong, you know? One post states, of all the Mandela effects, the King Tut one has hit me the hardest. I'm a huge fan of all things Egyptian and have been since childhood. Tut never had 2 animals on his headdress, so if I am simply misremembering, this is making me think that this is the beginning of my slow descent into dementia. If I'm not, I'm seriously questioning what's real anymore. Beats by Dre. This is a classic but almost forgotten Mandela effect in regards to the famous headphones named Beats by Dre, right? Well, no. The headphones have always been called Beats by Dr. Dre, though many swear that the official name was simply Beats by Dre, suggesting that we should have already known which Dre they're referring to. Though there's something that has led to this confusion, as some of Beats' official social media handles have the same name, Beats by Dre, on them, like here on YouTube. They go by Beats by Dre, although the actual official product sold is labeled as Beats by Dr. Dre. Why don't they stick to a single brand name? I don't know. Most likely convenience's sake. Also, does anyone else remember heavily using Beats music and how cool it was at the time? I remember finding out about hip hop through this app and listening to Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City. But I don't know, do you guys use this as residual evidence that Beats by Dre did in fact exist and that there's a new timeline shift? Or is it something else completely? Abe Lincoln and his top hat. Abraham Lincoln became the United States' 16th president in 1861, famous for freeing the slaves in America. Now, many people remember him always wearing a top hat in all of his famous pictures, though this is not the case, due to the fact that in the majority of his portraits, he is not wearing a hat at all. He is simply showing off his bare head. I don't know, do you guys remember him wearing a top hat in his famous pictures, or is this a simple misunderstanding? Though I believe some people may be confusing his historical pictures for popular pop culture media and costumes, as he is depicted with a top hat in tons of media. The hat isn't a myth either, as he did in fact own a top hat and wear it a lot, but would take it off for respect and other customs that called for it back in the day. iOS mummy emoji. Here's an interesting and pretty damning one for some people. Okay, some recall there being an iOS mummy emoji, described as a standard yellow emoji head wrapped in linen and showing only the eyes and sometimes the mouth according to some, looking somewhat like this. Do you guys recall this mummy emoji existing? One Reddit user stated, "It seems like it never existed when you look at emoji history, but I'm pretty sure he did exist and he was near zombie and vampire emoji on the keyboard." Some people also recall there being a full body mummy iOS emoji, but that doesn't exist anywhere. So where is the mummy emoji Mandela effect coming from, as a lot of emoji databases don't depict them at all? Could this be confused with zombie or vampire emoji, or is that a stretch? Let us know in the comments. SpongeBob scenes. This one was posted 2 years ago on a Mandela Effect thread stating, in the SpongeBob episode Clams, where Mr. Krabs, Squidward, and SpongeBob are on a boat, Mr. Krabs holds up a dollar bill that's been kissed with blue lipstick. Mr. Krabs mistakenly refers to it as Coral Blue No. 2 semi-gloss lipstick. SpongeBob then proceeds to correct Mr. Krabs by saying it's actually Coral Blue No. But this is somewhat cut off by getting bonked in the head by Squidward. Just till now, I've always thought SpongeBob was going to say number 5, and upon googling it, so did a shitload of other people, but it actually sounds like SpongeBob's going to say number 3 or nothing at all. But why do people remember him saying number 5 specifically? Take a look at the clip.
This is an ordinary dollar that's been crumpled up, torn slightly, soaked in a lagoon, and kissed with Coral Blue No. 2 semi-gloss lipstick.
Actually, it's Coral Blue No. 2.
Do any of you guys recall this specific detail? There's also another scene that people speculate has changed, this time in the first SpongeBob movie. Some recall SpongeBob holding up a white V-shaped guitar and the 2 letters KK for Krusty Krab on the head of the instrument. Though if we look back at the closing rock anthem sequence, he's actually holding a peanut-shaped guitar with the letters GG on the head, confusing many people as they recall differently. One commenter's reply states, "I remember it having a double neck, being purple and in V-shape. My friend also remembers it in a V-shape, but being white, and he didn't know about the confusion regarding it. Anyways, there isn't a single image on the internet where SpongeBob is holding said guitar. This doesn't even make sense." Here's the last SpongeBob related Mandela effect posted on the Mandela Effect forum stating, "Alright, so my brother and I both vividly remember the ending of the Krusty Krab training video, not ending with the narrator getting cut off when he is going to announce the Krabby Patty ingredient. We both remember the narrator saying something totally ridiculous that didn't actually have to do with anything about the ingredient, or somewhere along the lines of that. Are we the only ones? Some remember ingredients being listed off, but cut off quickly by the credit right when he is going to announce the secret ingredient for comedic effect. But if you go and rewatch it, even the first original airing of the episode, it cut off abruptly. Take a look."
Are you ready? Are you sure? Okay, the secret formula is...
I'm Patsy the Pirate.
And I'm...
Do any of you guys remember this quote-unquote missing scene? Statue of Liberty crown flip-flop. This is in reference to the New York Statue of Liberty Mandela effect, which some say has flip-flopped. Some people remember a Mandela effect years ago, which stated that people could not visit the crown on top of the Statue of Liberty. it was totally off limits or something like that. But now it's open to the public and people are allowed in. Some say that the only place you could access was the torch and not the crown, but now it has supposedly flipped right back to the crown only being accessible to the public and the torch restricted to only some. 2001: A Space Odyssey line. If you guys haven't watched this film, I highly recommend it. It's one of Stanley Kubrick's greatest films. Now, if you have watched this film, you guys would know about this evil operating system named the HAL 9000, who sabotages and tries to kill this man on a space mission. Now, do you guys remember the robot voice saying, "Good morning, Dave," and "I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that"? Well, if you do, you'd only be half correct, as HAL never says "Good morning, Dave" anywhere in the film, though people swear this was a very famous line from the movie. Do any of you guys recall this line? Air Jordan logo, Jumpman. Here's one that actually caught me by surprise and left me contemplating on how good my memory is. So you guys know the iconic Air Jordan logo, right? It's a silhouette of the man himself in basketball gear, jumping with a basketball in one hand. Now, do you remember him wearing sweats and not basketball shorts? Well, that's how it is now. The Air Jordan logo depicts the silhouette wearing pants, not shorts, as some recall him wearing. One comment on a Reddit thread talking about it states, "I think people misremember this because of the most iconic photos and posters of Jordan in the 90s about to dunk always depicted him in a Bulls uniform and shorts." Our reply states, "Maybe so. My experience refers to the logo. I haven't seen many posters or photos of Jordan dunking. I really don't follow sports. Same goes for me, as I am prone to confusion because I'm not that big of a fan of basketball compared to other people." Benny the Bull. Do you guys remember this character from Dora the Explorer, Benny the Bull, wearing a nose ring? Well, apparently he never had one, although many remember him sporting one and thinking about its inappropriateness for a children's cartoon. Here's a clip referencing the non-existent nose ring that some claim as evidence of this once existing in our universe. Take a look.
Listen, there's a reason they call him Benny the Bull Gronkowski. He's the toughest, most reliable guy.
We are so lost.
Oh, they call him the Bull because of his nose ring. Damn it.
Britney Spears. Most of you guys may recall the music video "Oops, I Did It Again" by Britney Spears, right? It's her iconic song and music video where she is depicted wearing a red, skin-tight suit. Now, many people recall Britney Spears wearing a headset microphone alongside her red suit. Some even suggest that there's evidence within the music video itself showing her reaching for a headset that's simply not there. Creepy. There's also this quote-unquote residual evidence that a lot of people point to when this Mandela effect is brought up, coming in the form of a Lizzie McGuire episode where she pretends to be Britney Spears in the "Oops, I Did It Again" music video, even wearing a headset microphone. Take a look.
Hip huggers. It'd be so oops, I did it again.
Mom, Dad, Lizzie's talking about dressing like Britney Spears.
The crazy thing is that even the costumes people wear referencing the music video contain a headset microphone. How are all these people misremembering something so random? Do you guys recall it this way, where she never had a headset on? One more piece of evidence comes in the form of an official doll that contains Britney and her costume she wore on the music video. The damning thing is that it contains a headset microphone that was never there to begin with. Why would they include the headset if it has nothing to do with the Britney Spears music video whatsoever? Did they avoid watching the music video when developing the product? Crazy. Wee Meanie. I personally think this one is pretty funny. Some recall the Wii Meanie never existing in their timeline, and are surprised to find out that this was an official Nintendo product that was released back in 2012 through 2013 in different countries. The Wii Meanie, model RVL201, is a smaller redesigned Wii with a top-loading disk drive. In addition to the lack of GameCube support, the Wii Meanie removes the Wi-Fi support and the online connectivity, along with the removal of the SD card slot. The thing sold for only $99 and was a cheaper alternative to the Wii at the time, though I don't think this one is a total Mandela effect, at least not for me. It seems like this was simply a forgotten product that was put aside due to its quality, but who knows? Are there any Wii Meanie deniers out there? Let me know in the comments if you guys remember anything different. It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown missing scene. This one comes to us from the Mandela Effect Reddit community reading, For some reason this barely gets posted here, and it is in my opinion the biggest and most interesting Mandela effect. Many people, including me, even though I must have been extremely young when I saw it, remember the great pumpkin rising from the ground at the end, but this never happens. This is so big for me because a lot of other Mandela effects always have a logical explanation, at least for me. Shazam is Kazam, Jiffy peanut butter, Jiffy baking mixes, etc. I feel like this Mandela effect in particular doesn't have an obvious connection to it, which makes it so interesting to me. What are your thoughts on it? One reply states, no, not on board with this one. Others in this thread have already pointed out that what you are almost certainly remembering is either Snoopy rising up and being mistaken for the Great Pumpkin, or most likely the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode where it actually happens. There's also a Robot Chicken episode where this happens.
What should we do?
You should let the Great Pumpkin eat you!
Charles Schulz, or Schulz, creator of the series, whose last name really is a Mandela effect, was a deeply religious man. The heavy-handed moral of the story is that Linus deceived himself into worshipping a false idol and missed his Halloween for nothing. If the Great Pumpkin had turned out to be real in some form, that would have severely undermined his message. What do you guys think about this one? I am your gummy bear. That sounds lovely out of context. This is in reference to the popular YouTube version of the song. The post bringing it up states, me and my family members and close friends are freaking out over this. Remember the annoying gummy bear song? Well, me and the people I've asked have always remembered the title being I'm a Gummy Bear. On YouTube it's titled The Gummy Bear Song, but on the official album it is titled I Am Your Gummy Bear. In fact, in the beginning of the video on YouTube, it shows the album and its title, stating I am your gummy bear. Listen, I have tons of little cousins who listen to this song. I'm pretty sure I know the title and lyrics, so do the rest of the people I've talked to about this. If anybody can find some sort of residual evidence, it would be appreciated. Home Alone 1990. The post that brought this effect to us reads, any fans of Home Alone 1990 here? Do you guys remember this line, or am I losing it? I've watched Home Alone pretty much every single year around Christmas time for almost 30 years now. I'm sure I'm not alone in the loving of this movie as one of the best Christmas films ever made. I know the film like the back of my hand. I could recite every line before it's even spoken. I have the film ingrained in my mind. I know a bunch of extraneous trivia about the film. Tonight, I decided to open up a Blu-ray. The past decade or so of me watching it has been a digital rip that I've probably downloaded, and back in the day, I could have watched it on TV or VHS. Anyways, there's a scene around 40 minutes into the movie where Kevin is almost hit by Marv and Harry as they're driving their van out to the street from a neighbor's driveway after robbing the house. They almost hits Kevin. The robbers exchange some words with him, and Kevin sees Harry's gold tooth and gets spooked, and he begins running away from him once he realizes that they're following him. He runs to the church and hides himself in a nativity scene. As the robbers drive up to the church, they have the following dialogue that I seem to have remembered differently. Marv goes, maybe he went to the church. Harry then responds, I'm not going in there. Marv then says, me neither. Harry replies, let's get out of here. I could have sworn that Marv in his second line of the dialogue said, me neither, that place gives me the creeps. I remember always thinking about how weird it was that he seemed so freaked out about going into the church. As a kid, I reasoned that it was probably because they were bad guys, and that being in a holy place would make them uncomfortable. When I saw the movie tonight and he didn't mention that, it immediately felt like something was missing. Now I'm questioning if he ever said that, or if I just imagined that he said something like that based on my implications of their dialogue. So I'm not absolutely 100% certain, but I was caught off guard enough to wonder if this was something else that people remember. One reply states, Googling the scripts for both movies, I searched the word creep and came up with 2 results in the first movie. Both were cases of Harry calling Kevin a little creep, and no results in the second movie. Though, to be fair, the script and the lines in a movie aren't always one-on-one. Side note, searching Home Alone creep comes up with a surprisingly rich amount of not safe for work results. Search at your own risk. John Deere. Do any of you guys recall John Deere being spelt this way? Well, if you do, you're in for a surprise because it actually contains a letter E at the end. Yeah, it has always been spelled as John Deere with an extra E at the end in this reality, according to the Mandela effect. One reply to this effect states, "Now I realize that most people remember this tractor manufacturer as John Deere, but I remember it without the E at the end, and found an unusual residual piece of evidence. In my hometown, there is a John Deere store. It is right off the main street. It sits at the top of a hill, and you have to take a long drive up to it. Because of this, the owners decided to call the driveway Deere Street. Yep, that's right, no E at the end, though the John Deere sign on the store remains as it is now, with an extra E." I've asked a handful of people over the past few days, making sure not to load the question, i.e. not asking, "Do you remember the cornucopia on the Fruit of the Loom logo?" but instead asking them to describe it to me without looking it up. Every single person described the fruit in either a cornucopia or a quote-unquote basket thing. I feel there isn't a plausible explanation for this Mandela effect. People say it's because you associate a pile of fruit with a cornucopia. However, being from the UK, I would not have made this association. Hey, Ariel here for the Book of Alice channel, with a deep dive on the Fruit of the Loom Mandela effect, and all of the evidence found for it. This one's going to be pretty shocking to some, so consider sticking around. I hope everyone is having a good day so far. I found that getting some exercise doesn't hurt, and it's actually been improving my mornings. Cheers to that. But you know, everyone has a different circumstance, so feel more than free to vent about it in the comments. Anyways, this video touches on the Fruit of the Loom logo, and the missing cornucopia mostly everyone remembers. Through my years of following the Mandela effect phenomenon, I found that most Mandela effects are controversial, as some find a reasonable explanation and settle the case with just that. But there's a single instance where this doesn't happen often, and that is where the Fruit of the Loom logo comes in, as the majority agree that they remember a cornucopia sitting in the company logo. Today we go over the evidence provided to us by our friends on Reddit, Twitter, and put simply all across the internet. The simple explanation theory. This one puts forth the idea that the simplest answer is the right one, and that people are misremembering the logo with some other pop culture staple. Though this isn't quite the case for some, as the similar logo designs that some say they are mistaking them for are not as popular on the international level as some might think. And yes, they are popular outside of America, though there is no popular or competing brand that people are simply mistaking this for. Not to justify the phenomenon at least, unless you're an avid MAGA supporter, this isn't the case. Like this Reddit user puts it, "The Fruit of the Loom logo is literally how I learned what a cornucopia is. It may not be on the underwear, but at some points there was absolutely packaging or something with a cornucopia on it. I didn't see another cornucopia until the Hunger Games movie, and I remembered what it was because of the Fruit of the Loom logo." Ant Bully. In the 2006 animated film Ant Bully, which is a blast of nostalgia for me, I don't know if anyone else remembers this film, there's a scene in which an underwear is shown, and on the tag is a reference to the Fruit of the Loom logo, containing what? Yeah, a cornucopia. While finding this, I found a notable comment that seems to be consistent across the internet. People remember referring to the cornucopia as a quote-unquote loom due to the brand's name. Like this Reddit user puts it, "This one bugs me to no end. I feel like we've all got the same memory of learning what a cornucopia was from the logo, or were corrected when we mistakenly called it a loom." I do not remember a cornucopia on the tag, but I do remember a commercial with fruit falling out of a cornucopia. Newspaper findings. Some have found quote-unquote residual evidence for this Mandela effect on old newspaper articles which at all mention the Fruit of the Loom logo. One creepy finding is titled, "Well, it's corny and copious," stating, "A 4th grade teacher in Brainerd, Minnesota recently drew a horn of plenty on the blackboard and asked the class if anyone knew the correct name for it. One child raised his hand and answered, 'I know, it's a fruit of the loom.'" This newspaper article from the 90s reads, "Brands were chosen for slogan value. Fruit of the Loom, which offers a cornucopia label that echoes Readley's Fruit Basket." South Park. In 2012, South Park released the episode titled "I Should Have Never Gone Ziplining," where they show Eric Cartman's underwear, and on the tag there's a Fruit of the Loom logo parody, which contains, you guessed it, a cornucopia. The knockoff explanation. Some believe that the reason for this misconception is because the logos containing the cornucopias did in fact exist, but they were knockoffs with subtle logo changes. No, this doesn't serve as a reasonable explanation due to the fact that Fruit of the Loom is already relatively affordable. It's not Nike or Adidas. The profit margin wouldn't be much. I mean, they sell them at Walmart. Even then, nobody has come up with a picture showing off the legitimate tag that displays a cornucopia and the logo, at least none that are 100% reliable. Frank West's damning evidence. In 1973, Frank West released an album, the cover parodying the Fruit of the Loom logo, titled Flute of the Loom. Now, someone was able to track down the person who created his album cover and found that they are Mandela Effect believer. The Reddit post discovering this states, "One piece of residue you may be aware of is the Flute of the Loom album by Frank West. I learned that the artist behind the album cover was a man named Ellis Chappell. He still has a studio website, so I decided to fill out the website form and see what he had to say. Here is what I sent him. Hi, are you the person who painted the album artwork for Flute of the Loom? Would it be alright if we asked you a couple of questions about your inspiration for the design? Thank you. Name redacted." I received a reply the next day from Reed Chappell, Ellis' son. "Hi, redacted. This is Reed, Ellis' son, responding for my dad here. I remember the cornucopia specifically, as does my dad. This is the second time we've been contacted about this album cover, and Ellis and I are more than happy to answer any questions you have about it. I was a little kid when Ellis painted the Flute of the Loom cover, and I remember specifically this album being a reference to the cornucopia and Fruit of the Loom's original logo, which is where my dad says he specifically got the inspiration for the design. When I talked to him about it, he said, 'Why the hell else would I have used a cornucopia? The food coming out of the flute is soul food, actually. A ham hock, cabbage, black-eyed peas, etc.' I remember when, in my mind, Fruit of the Loom quit using a cornucopia on their logo and switched to just using fruit by itself. It impressed me because I thought the logo looked better with a cornucopia in it. In my memories, this was roughly around 1978 when I was in 2nd grade. So anyways, feel free to ask away." Reading this, it seems that they had no idea that the logo never contained a cornucopia in the entirety of the company's existence. Just like a lot of other people, they believed that it did in fact exist, but was simply changed by the company. Here are Q&A responses from the artist himself. "Do you know for certain that there was a cornucopia? There had to be. I would have no reason to paint the image that way if there had not been a cornucopia. The flute takes the place of the cornucopia, but it would not make any sense at all if there had not been a cornucopia to begin with. It's a take off the label, so it has to resemble the label substantially, otherwise it would make no sense. Did you draw/paint this album cover from memory, or did you have a photo, print, or clothing item you used as reference? I think I had a t-shirt with the Fruit of the Loom label that I looked at for reference. I used to have, in fact I still have a lot of them, file folders with images such as a folder for musical instruments or a folder for trucks or automobiles. But this piece was primarily made from my imagination other than looking at the Fruit of the Loom label." The leaf theory. Many suggest that the brown leaf in one of the variations of the logo could have been mistaken as a cornucopia, leading to this massive misconception, though the leaves and positions therein do not resemble a cornucopia, at least not to the majority of believers. I'd also like to point out the argument that states the only reason we remember a cornucopia is because we associate them with a bundle of fruit due to the Thanksgiving holiday. Though wouldn't this mean that we would associate other logos that contain fruits with cornucopias? And what about the people who remember the cornucopia that don't live in the United States of America? What are they confusing it with? And why don't they confuse it with another item, like for instance a brown barrel, a fruit basket, a bowl, or simply a brown bag? Why is it always remembered as a cornucopia? What do you guys think about this? Man, I swear I remember a Fruit of the Loom commercial from when I was younger where dudes were all dressed up as the fruits and they literally stood in front of one of these with a white background all around them. I for sure recall this commercial. I was grapes for Halloween once. Do any of you guys recall this commercial? Is this lost media or a Mandela effect? This last piece of quote-unquote evidence comes in the form of a trademark filed by the Fruit of the Loom company. If you take a look at the details, it lists the logo as having a cornucopia alongside the fruits, though the official art above has no cornucopia in sight. Though if we take a closer look, it does say that the trademark was then cancelled. Or did the Mandela effect erase the original logo from our history? Funny enough, Fruit of the Loom changed their logo to include a cornucopia on April Fool's Day 2022, updating their website to show the recreation, though most say that they didn't recreate the logo well. Something to note is that the cornucopia found in the popular image used the most to depict the Mandela effect was simply taken from a stock image website. With little effort, someone was able to perfectly recreate the logo everyone remembers. SpongeBob character designs. I found this one on Reddit, posted by Skylanders Kirby about a month ago, regarding Mr. Krabs and a detail about his character design, surrounding his eyelid or eyes. Now, go ahead and picture him in your head. Do you remember Mr. Krabs simply having eyelids, or does he also have pronounced eyelashes? Well, apparently, he does have eyelashes, which has astounded some people, who remember Mr. Krabs only having eyelids that would cover the top portion of his eyes, but this isn't the case in most of the episodes he's depicted in. These three little eyelash things have always been on there. Another Mandela effect regarding the animated series points to Sandy Cheeks and her character design, specifically an object on her person that people vividly remember, that's being a white backpack, presumably being her oxygen tank, as she is a squirrel living in the ocean. She needs to breathe, of course, but this isn't the case, as throughout her numerous appearances, she is never shown sporting a white backpack or anything else on her back that would appear to be an oxygen tank. Do any of you guys strongly recall this feature on her character? Or maybe you remember them being shown a certain way at least once and have evidence. Kanye West's album. This one pertains to legendary producer and writer Kanye West and his sophomore album Late Registration, which is personally my favorite out of his discography. The Reddit post bringing this up 6 years ago states, I distinctly remember Kanye West's album cover for Late Registration. The bear looked straight at me in the original, or in my version of the album cover that I remember, but as of now, the bear's looking off to the side, and it has this weird kind of distorted look on its face, a similar look that I can see with the Mona Lisa painting. The face just looks off, like a glitch or something. Maybe artists from the past or the other dimensions/timelines understood a method of drawing that we can't comprehend anymore. Look, all of the theories aside, I know for a fact that the bear was just looking directly straight on the cover, and he used to have a mellow and humble expression on his face. What happened? Evidence and music video. This entry is in reference to the broadband Internet Killed the Video Star music video, made in the year 2000. In the video, they make tons of reference to pop culture and media that were popular at the time. Eerily enough, there are two Mandela effects able to be found in this video, the first being the Pikachu one. Many remember Pikachu having a black tip at the end of his tail, although he has never had one, according to Pokemon history. But if we take a look at the poster behind the computer, there we see the Pikachu that so many remember. The second Mandela effect found in the music video is the Britney Spears red plaid skirt mystery, as some remember Britney wearing a red plaid skirt in her Hit Me Baby music video. You know, the one where she dresses up as a schoolgirl? Apparently, it was never red, but actually just black. Though this music video from the year 2000, the parody cartoon of Britney Spears is sporting a red plaid skirt, the way many remember it. Is this evidence, or simply acknowledging that we have always misremembered it? Missing Squidward scene. There's a scene some remember from the series depicting Squidward walking into the Krusty Krab and grabbing his hat from a coat rack, turning around in a circle, then proceeding to take off, placing it back on the coat rack, and exiting the establishment, poking fun or simply making a reference to the Simpsons episode Bart After Dark, in which Abraham Simpson enters a house and exits it immediately after spotting grandson Bart. This scene was used by many people online as a basis for reaction GIFs, where they illustrate people or groups backing out of a tricky, toxic, or alarming situation. But it turns out this scene doesn't exist. Scouring the internet, you only come across a few still images of Squidward leaving the Krusty Krab and Simpson gifs, but that's pretty much it. Do you guys think this was confused with the Abe Simpson meme, since both are pretty iconic animated shows, or did this never exist in the first place? The Google logo. Look at every letter in the Google logo. Do you notice that one is slanted upwards, possibly the letter E? Yeah, some recall the Google logo being as straightforward as possible, simply the words spelled out with their iconic colors being their quote-unquote special thing. Though the only time that this was the case was back in 1998. I wasn't even alive then, yet I still don't remember the E being slanted at the end, but what do I know? I have faulty memory. Let's see how others remember it. Does anyone else remember the letter E in the Google logo having a horizontal bar instead of a slanted one? I opened up YouTube on my phone and the splash page had Google's logo, but the E looked different. I remember the E being perfectly parallel with the baseline the word is written on, not slanted. Granted, if this is a recent change in the standard Google logo, I may have not noticed, as I used DuckDuckGo. I think most people just overlook the subtle details in the logos, although many stand their ground as to what they remember, like me, who grew up with the slanted E always being there, but never noticed it. The oldest recorded Mandela effect. This one comes from Reddit, posted by user Anton61 3 years ago. The post states, possible earliest case of the Mandela effect, recorded by Carl Jung. Now, if you don't know, Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who founded analytical psychology. Jung's work has been influential in many fields, even founding the theory of the collective unconscious. He believed that human beings are connected to each other and their ancestors through a shared set of experiences. We use this collective unconscious to make choices, even though we are not aware as to the reasons why. For example, the shared experience of people being afraid of certain animals. Listen to this passage from his book, where he seems to tell a Mandela effect type experience. I retain the most distinct memory of the mosaic of Peter sinking, and to this day can see every detail before my eyes. The blue of the sea, individual chips of the mosaic, the inscribed scrolls proceeding from the mouth of Peter and Christ, which I attempted to decipher. After we left the baptistry, I went promptly to Alinari to buy photographs of the mosaics, but could not find any. Time was pressing. This was only a short visit, and so I postponed the purchase until later. I thought I might order the pictures from Zurich. When I got back home, I asked an acquaintance who was going back to Ravenna to obtain the pictures for me. He could not locate them though, for he discovered that the mosaics I had described did not exist. Meanwhile, I had already spoken at a seminar about the original conception of baptism, and on this occasion had only mentioned the mosaics that I had seen in the baptistry of the Orthodox. The memory of those pictures is still vivid to me. The lady who had been there with me long refused to believe that what she had seen with her own eyes had not existed. As we know, it is very difficult to determine whether and to what extent two persons simultaneously see the same thing. In this case, however, I was able to ascertain that at least the main features of what we both saw had been the same. The experience in Ravenna is among the most curious events in my life. It can scarcely be explained. Wow, what a moving passage. What are your perceptions about this entry? American Psycho. If you don't know Patrick Bateman by now, you've probably been avoiding TikTok, as his presence and lifestyle has been memified and glorified by the Sigma grindset culture. This Mandela effect pertains to his infamous facial expression that he does, the "I'm not impressed" look. Well, some remember him raising his eyebrows and wrinkling his forehead when doing it, but he simply doesn't when rewatching the film. Take a look at people doing the impression wrong. Though this one's a bit of a nitpick, and it's simply a facial expression, and those could change really fast throughout an entire movie. He could have done this in different scenes, or done it really fast, and that's where people picked it up, but I don't know. Now there are 3 Mandela effects affecting the game Monopoly. Many years ago, many of us here, including myself, experienced the Monopoly man going from having a monocle to not having a monocle. Then a couple of months ago, auctions appeared in the game for the first time for some people. Auctions were always in the game for me though, but I have learned from being a moderator here not all the Mandela effects affect people that experience the Mandela effect. Within the past few days, the Monopoly man's name changed from Uncle Moneybags to Uncle Pennybags. This is my second one relating to Monopoly to experience. My question is, does anyone have any theories on why there are 3 Mandela effects relating to Monopoly? A1 steak sauce. This one is in regards to one of my favorite condiments, A1 steak sauce. It's bussin' on a well done sirloin. Now, do you guys remember the steak sauce logo looking something like this, with a dash in between the A and the 1? Well, A lot of people do, and are surprised to find that there was never a dash in the middle, but was separated by periods instead. Do any of you guys remember it this way? I don't know, this one seems like a simple mix-up for another brand name, but who knows? What if the Mandela effect is an AI changing information? Is this even possible? Well, Project Maven was already being used by the military back in 2017, which was about 5 years ago. The Defense Department's most prominent AI technology, Project Maven, was made to scan full motion videos and images from drones and other surveillance equipment to identify potential threats. Additionally, it aims to hasten the military's adoption of artificial intelligence. The Sentience World Simulation, CEAS, Synthetic Environment for Analysis and Simulations, is currently being used by Homeland Security and the United States Defense Department to simulate crisis on the US mainland. It can currently execute real-time simulations for up to 62 countries, including China, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Breaking news, census information, economic indicators, and real-world climactic occurrences, along with other military intelligence. And Google gave its AI called DeepMind administrative access to their servers back in 2016, about 6 years ago. So all that considered, it seems highly likely that AI is more advanced than they're telling us. What if one of the many AIs that have access to servers and online information is changing information to test how the human population responds to it? What if the government or military is using an AI to do this in order to test their capacities, or to test the limits of their abilities, to change the information and to sway the perception of the masses? For those that don't think that the government or military would orchestrate a project that malicious, let's not forget about Operation Northwoods, Project MK Ultra, Operation Mockingbird, and the Tuskegee experiments. Missing FNAF scene. Five Nights at Freddy's is one of the most iconic games on the internet. Created by Scott Cawthon, he would develop a cult fan base for the series. This entry is in regards to an infamous screenshot from the game that many have investigated and found that it was never in the game, nor in the trailers, as some like to argue. The image presents all three characters, Freddy, Chica, and Bonnie, staring menacingly at the player, though something looks completely off. People claim to have seen this shot while playing the game, but internet investigators decided to go through all the builds and textures in game and found nothing similar. There's no move or action you could do to make this screen pop up. Do any of you remember this screen? Ariel the Mermaid character design. Some remember that Ariel in Disney's The Little Mermaid was wearing 2 starfishes as her top. One user even stated, "I even remember watching the video of a dude saying that the starfish have their mouths on the underside, so when Ariel has her bra on, the starfish's mouths were on her you-know-whats." I don't know, maybe it's just us, just want to know if you guys remember her having starfishes as the top 2. To be honest, I don't recall them ever being starfishes, but maybe some of you do. I remember them being purple seashells, if anything, but it depends on the version you watched. Funny enough, while finishing the entry, I came across the post this person is most likely referring to, with 10,000 upvotes. The keyword is some. In this post, reading, "In some cartoons, mermaids use starfish as bras. Starfish have their mouth in the center of their underside." This is your brain on drugs commercial. I can't say the word because, it's YouTube, but you probably know the commercials. They show an egg and crack it into a frying pan and say, "This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?" Like this user states, watching the video on YouTube, they show the same scenario, but after they say, "This is your brain," they point to the frying pan and say, "This is the drugs." Then crack the egg in it. I definitely don't ever remember them making that comment in the middle. How about anyone else? One comment states, "I don't remember it either, but they probably made multiple edits of it in different lengths. All commercials do that, but I don't remember the frying pan being called drugs." This person remembers it as, "This is your brain." Pause approximately 5 seconds. "This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?" Exactly. Even in the movie/documentary Have a Good Trip, this is the wording they use. Another reply states, "I went back and watched the commercial, and that's pretty much how I remembered it. While I don't remember him calling the pan drugs, it's likely I only remembered the tagline." To be fair, there are variations of the commercial online. Different ones were made, with some even including an extended cut, though all of them refer to the pan as drugs, which does puzzle some people. iCarly's first episode. This one comes from Reddit and it states, "Being a kid when the first episode aired, iPilot in 2007, I was eager to watch. I watched the episodes, which is still available wherever you can stream the show. However, I have a vivid memory that at the very beginning of the episode, just before it jumped to a commercial break, there was a scene with Carly and Freddie, where Freddie went up to Carly and said something along the lines of, "Do you want to make out in the hall?" After Freddie said this, Carly rolled her eyes or said no, can't remember exactly, and then the episode ended. As the years went on, with the reruns and now streaming, that scene is completely gone from the episode. I've never seen it again, except for the very first airing. I really don't think I'm imagining it, and I would like to know if anyone has a recording of the very first time the episode was aired on Nickelodeon, or remembers this scene as well. Thanks. I didn't really watch iCarly growing up, so I can't really relate to this one, but it seems from the post that a few people do vividly remember this scene. One comment states, "I watched the episode of iCarly on some streaming service probably in 2020. I remember the apartment I lived in that year, and I absolutely remember not only seeing this, but being surprised that I watched the show so young, and my mom still let me watch it if they had comments like that, because my mom was so sensitive to adult stuff. This definitely was a real thing." A Mandela effect and a SpongeBob episode. So I remember an episode from SpongeBob. It's called Krusty Towers, and if you've seen it, you know there's one Krusty Tower, but I remember there being two towers joined together like a complex. And it makes more sense for the episode to be called Krusty Towers if there are two towers. Like I legit remember there being two towers in that episode. One reply states, "I just looked it up, you're right. The episode is called Krusty Towers. Interesting, I don't have a memory attached to this episode, as I have never seen it, but I will do more research on it later, to see if anyone else remembers like you do. I will also ask my nephew, he's a SpongeBob fanatic." Green Lantern with white shoes? This one comes to us from user Future Glow. Reading, "I've always remembered Green Lantern with white shoes until today. When my brother was drawing Green Lantern and he drew Green Lantern's shoes green, I was confused, so I asked him why he colored them green, and it turns out it's always been green and never white. I immediately checked the McDonald's Green Lantern's toys, and they all had green shoes, to my surprise. I remember them being white though. Am I the only one who remembered them as being white? I googled and saw several toys of Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern, with white boots, and I managed to find one comic image of Hal Jordan with white boots, and a few other comic covers with other members of the Corps with white boots, but it is definitely rare to see. A Bug's Life 2. You guys may remember the Pixar classic A Bug's Life, though it didn't garnish as much attention as Cars or Toy Story, it for sure was on replay in my household growing up. Now, I do not recall this, but some remember there being a sequel to the film. Yeah, some remember watching A Bug's Life 2. Not only that, some recall seeing posters and advertisements for the movie. Interesting enough, they are working on a sequel as of now, and are on track to release the movie sometime around 2023. I'm thinking some may be confusing the film with another movie called Ants, revolving around insects as well, though that would be a massive mistake as this one is not made by Pixar but rather DreamWorks. Zero changed from The Nightmare Before Christmas. This entry is in reference to Zero, Jack's ghost dog in the movie. Now, if you've watched the film, picture him in your head. What is on the tip of his nose? Leave a comment of what you think it is, if you want. Now, do you remember him having a round, red glowing nose, a nod to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? If you answered yes, you may be surprised to find out that he actually has a jack-o'-lantern for a nose. Yeah, he was never depicted in the film sporting a simple red glowing nose. It's never happened. He simply had a jack-o'-lantern for a nose, and he was just chill like that, I guess. One user stated, "This is one of my favorite films of all time, and I don't remember Zero having a pumpkin nose. I remember it being a glowing red circle. I thought it was cool because it was a little reference to Rudolph. I think that it's possible that that detail is so small that most of us didn't notice it was a jack-o'-lantern. Plus, I'm sure we all know Rudolph, which inclines us to think that it's red and glowing. I definitely thought it was like Rudolph's nose too, but looking back at it, I can see how easily I could have been mistaken." Coke Zero. This is one that has personally affected me, as I cold-heartedly visually remember the product and logo being Coke Zero, not Coca-Cola Zero, and I could picture that logo in my brain easily. But no, it has always been Coca-Cola Zero apparently. I found a post that I could relate to on Reddit stating, "This is another one I remember, as if it happened yesterday. When I would go to grocery stores or stores in general, I noticed the logo in front had changed to Coca-Cola Zero. I thought nothing of it, just thought of it as a brand change, but it's not. I've seen a few people mention it and skeptics try to debunk it. saying common things such as it's a brand change. The logo hasn't changed though, it's in the back in small letters. They are referring to this small logo near the ingredients on the bottle that does present the logo in the way that many remember it, with the words simply being Coke and Zero. So we know for a fact that this logo did in fact exist, but it wasn't the main logo as believers recall. The post states that logo was only ever printed in a tiny space on the back where the ingredients and such are. We are looking for main labeling on the front or sides that may say Coke Zero. Never existed now, I guess. I'm just saying it definitely existed as a logo. Oh yeah, I don't think there's an argument of that, and no doubts you can go out and see it right now, today, but it's the absence of the main labeling all over the front. I don't drink Coke at all, ever, but the giant 2-liter plastic bottles I feel like used to have just Coke Zero printed on them when I was coming up. Not a 100%er for me though, by any means. Judge Judy gavel flip-flop. So here's one that some claim has flip-flopped, a term used to explain a Mandela effect that has changed multiple times. Back in 2022, there were many Mandela effect videos that were posted, and in those videos I remember them covering the Judge Judy Mandela effect, stating that she never had a gavel in the show, although people remembered it that way. Well, she actually does, and it has made appearances on multiple episodes. Is it a flip-flop or a simple mistake though? My theory is that this was always the case. People remembered it because it actually happened. But when the discussion of this Mandela effect was brought up, there weren't many people avidly seeking an episode with the gavel to prove it's wrong. What do you guys think about this one? I even remember it being an entry in one of my icebergs videos way back. And so I looked at the comments, and what do you know? Some were denying its existence at all. Some even attempting to explain it away as well. Not sure if this is anyone but me, but when Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas first came out, I thought it was a cover of a much older song. A few of my cadences were different, which would be understandable if it was a cover. I knew I'd heard the song before though. I thought maybe the original was Dolly Parton or someone sounding familiar, but no, it's Mariah Carey, and it always has been. Does anyone else firmly believe Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas was a cover? It doesn't feel like a 90s song, I'll give it that. It does harken back to a different time to me. I could have sworn I heard my husband say it was a cover, and he's basically a walking jukebox. I'll have to ask him. Have we run out of Mandela effects yet? No, but it seems that we have already beat the same ones into the ground millions of times, like the Bernstein's bear one, or the Fruit of the Loom one. I mean, when are they dropping new ones? Come on, TikTok keeps regurgitating the same topics. Well, I take it upon myself to mindlessly scroll through the jungle of the internet to find you new or at least interesting aspects of certain Mandela effects that you may have not heard of before. Now, this may mean that some people just think certain entries are plain dumb, and I don't blame you one bit, though it may also cause others to re-question their memory and existence. Either way, this is Ariel for the Book of Alice channel, presenting 22 interesting Mandela effects. Let's begin. Super Mario Bros. So if you're into the Mario franchise and have played the original Super Mario Bros on the NES, do you remember the first level of the game containing the infamous piranha plant? Well, some recall that after hopping over the first green pipe in the game, the second one would surprise them because out popped the piranha that the first pipe didn't have. Though this isn't the case. If you go and play the first level, you'll see that there's no plants present anywhere in the landscape. Though many remember always losing the power-up the mushrooms gave them from the question block as soon as they hopped over the second green pipe, but that doesn't happen now when they replay the level. Piranhas do not come out of any of the pipes. Reddit users replying to this effect state, I remember it being strange there were only plants on 2 of the 3 pipes, but I thought it was the first one that didn't have a plant. There was a collection of NES games for the Super Nintendo called Super Mario All-Stars. The graphics had been fixed up to show off the new system. Maybe they threw in some new enemies to show off its better processor, and make them more challenging for an audience who would have already had at least one of them memorized. Memories can bleed, but I distinctly remember my dad watching us play. You learn right away that if you're touching a pipe, the piranha plant won't pop up. My sister is touching a pipe, she's about to jump on it, and my dad says, stop, that plant's going to get you. And then she explains how it works. I was sure it was in level 1, but I could be wrong. I'm 35 years old and this was my first game I played hundreds of times. I know all levels and the plant was in the level 1 for sure. I had played the game with my boy in 2015 when he was 6 on an old Sega, and he couldn't pass the first level. The flower got him every time. For that, I am sure that there was the flower in level 1 and nobody can change my mind. You played Mario on an old Sega? That comment was gold, had to add it in. But do any of you guys remember there being a piranha plant in the first level? Let us know in the comments. Anybody remember the Taco Bell medium sauce packets? I'm trying to find a picture of the medium sauce packets, but I can't find one anywhere. I'm 100% sure my local Taco Bell in New York City had medium sauce packets in the early 2000s, circa 2009, and then they got rid of them when either Fire came out or Diablo was released. I don't remember which. I saw another Reddit post saying it may have been a regional test trial or something like that. I've made a bet that they exist, but I can't find a picture of one. So if anyone happens to have a photo of one, can you please link it? Replies state, I don't have any pictures, but I remember the progressions went mild, medium, hot. Then when Fire was released, they dropped medium. I was bummed because that was my go-to many times when I was growing up and couldn't take the spice of hot. This happened well before 2009, likely the 90s or 2004. An interesting thing to note is that they do have mild, but they also have medium like the Reddit post states. The only difference is that it comes in a jar form, not in the original Taco Bell sauce packets. Could this mean that it could have existed once in a small packet form? Well, if it did, it would have had to been undocumented for years because none of the recorded mild sauce packets produced ever had the word medium labeled on it. Metal cannot go in the microwave. This Mandela effect comes to us from TikTok, where many people recall that putting any sort of metal in the microwave was a no-no growing up, and that it would cause the microwave to blow up or for it to spark. So they recorded themselves heating up metal forks in the microwave, showing us that nothing really happens if you do so. Some recall that as children they would accidentally leave a fork in the microwave and it would cause sparks and left a burn mark on the metal utensil. But when they go and do it now, nothing happens, though many people say that they are getting metal mixed with aluminum in this case, due to the fact that certain aluminum products will spark and ignite a fire if heated in a microwave oven, though this is on a case-by-case basis, as some things won't catch on fire and others will. Like this TikToker said, my microwave caught on fire before from tinfoil in the wing container. So let this be a warning, don't go put something crazy in the microwave just because of an internet video. Some are now even resurfacing old videos of people putting forks in a microwave and filming the sparks, claiming it's evidence of the reality shift going on. Do any of you guys remember this precaution, or do you conclude that it may just depend on the type of microwave you have and the metal you're heating up? Let us know in the comments. Rereading the book 1984 by George Orwell, and thought I'd share a quote from it that I find interesting. The past, he reflected, had not merely been altered, it had been actually destroyed, for how could you establish even the most obvious fact when there existed no record outside of your own memory? Sound familiar? This goes so well with the Mandela effect, and I often feel this way when I am trying to explain the Mandela effect to someone. How can I possibly prove that what I'm remembering was a fact for me at one time if there is no record of it outside of my own memory? The answer is I can't, and that is the problem we face with the Mandela effect. The SpongeBob box episode. A lot of you may already know which episode this entry is referring to, specifically the one where Patrick has a box with an embarrassing photo of SpongeBob in it, but he won't let SpongeBob take a look, leading to a wild goose chase for the box. The quest ultimately ends with SpongeBob opening the box, revealing a single string inside of it, calming his anxiousness, only for the ending to reveal that the box had a secret compartment that stored SpongeBob's embarrassing photo, but the photo is never revealed anywhere in the episode's timeline, not even at the end. Yet, many claim to remember an image depicting SpongeBob in a Santa outfit being shown at the end. One post states, I remember the photo of that one SpongeBob episode, so I think everyone remembers the SpongeBob episode where Patrick has a secret box with the embarrassing Christmas photo. Well, I remember them showing us the photo. It was one of those shots where they pay extra attention to the design of the shot. It was attached to a string, and the photo showed SpongeBob wearing a Santa outfit, I think. I also think he was in front of one of those purple tree things you see in the show. It was also during the daytime and obviously outside. I don't remember everything of it since I think I saw it 11 years ago. Another post reads, "The embarrassing picture of SpongeBob at the Christmas party. I'm 24, but as a kid, when that episode was released, I'm sure that they actually showed the picture of SpongeBob at the Christmas party that was in Patrick's secret box at the very end of the episode. Now, when they show the episode, it isn't there anymore. No one I know remembers it, but I swear it was there. Does anyone else remember this?" Someone goes on to describe it. "Pretty sure they showed it. I think it depicts a close-up of him ripping his pants with his whiteys showing through. He's spilling a large bowl of eggnog all over Sandy or something while he looks back at his pants in horror. There's some sort of chaos in the background. I vaguely remember Gary and Squidward and an Xmas tree with a bent top. I don't know." The closest thing found is this clip from Nick Miss holiday specials they would run on television in 2002, though it's not really related to the specific episode we're talking about. It could have been a reference to it though. Do you guys remember this scene being in the episode? The Wizard of Oz. This film has come up numerous times in Mandela Effect discussion forums, describing things that seem to have gone missing from the film to new added details popping out of nowhere for some people, like the fact that the Scarecrow in the movie had an entire pistol on him. He was strapped up and ready to do jail time for Dorothy. Some claim that it's rather uncanny seeing the friendly character brandishing a firearm when they never remembered him that way. Many also remember Dorothy's socks being white until they rewatch it to find that they've always been blue, claiming that the red shoes and white socks combo she had on were iconic to her character. Though the most infamous effect pertaining to the movie covers a line in a specific scene where the Wicked Witch of the West sends out her flying monkeys to find and capture Dorothy and Toto, the line being, "Fly my pretties, fly." If you remember her stating those exact words in her tone of voice, you'd be surprised to find out that she never actually said this. Yeah, it doesn't appear anywhere in the film. Here's what she actually states. "Now fly, fly." A little underwhelming if you're anticipating the scene. There are even pieces of merchandise containing the exact quote many remember, including shirts and posters. The following are some clips in pop culture that make reference to it, the way many remember.
Fly, my pretties, fly, fly!
Fly, my pretties, fly!
The human kidneys. Think about your kidneys and where they're located on your body. Are you guessing that they're somewhere on the lower back of your body? You've learned this and have even seen it in one of those torso models in school, right? Well, they're actually not located there. Instead, they are found on the middle part of the torso, somewhere near the lungs. Yeah, they're not in our lower back as some recall. One Reddit user states, "In middle school, I'm 27, female, my teacher had a torso model in which you could take the parts out, and I specifically remember having to take out the large and small intestines to get to the kidneys, in which were located in the lower back. Some believe that the reason why we recall it being in the lower back is because of the pain correlation, as according to Cleveland Clinic, kidney pain is often felt in your sides, back, belly, or groin. It's often mistaken for back pain. Kidney pain can be caused by kidney stones, kidney infections, an injury, or kidney cancer, but that's just one explanation. This one I agree is confused by enough people to possibly be a Mandela effect. I'm 36, and I remember in movies like Rocky and The Kickboxer where people were called for kidney shots, and it always seemed to be a punch in the lower back, right above the hip. I was surprised by anatomical models later in life showing the kidneys so high. 7-Eleven. You probably know this convenience store either in real life or have seen it in popular media. Now, how do you remember the logo? Simply a big 7 and the word 11 spelled out in all capital letters, right? Well, no, as the letter N is lowercase, which some recall it being the opposite and capitalized, though the only time this was the case was back in 1946 through 1969, not recently, as most recall it being. Do you remember all the letters in the logo being capitalized? Lucy, you got some splaining to do. This has to be one of the most popular lines reused in multiple pieces of media, standing alongside quotes like "Luke, I am your father" or "Life is like a box of chocolates." Deriving from the 1950s sitcom I Love Lucy, the quote is attributed to Cuban bandleader Ricky Ricardo, explaining the accent. The quote, "Many remember," states, "Lucy, you got some splaining to do," referenced numerous times in pop culture. It becomes creepy when you realize that the sentence was never uttered in the show to begin with, not even a single time. Even fans that claim to have watched every episode have stated that the line doesn't appear in the series. The closest line heard is, "Okay Lucy, splain," and "Alright, start splainin'," but never the original line many remember. So where's this coming from? Well, like the game Telephone, many believe that this can be credited to the corruption of the original phrase, as it was copied from one person to the other. But how is the quote so prominent and repeated very similar? If this is the case, why were script writers so bold to put it in multiple pieces of entertainment? This Reddit post finds something interesting though, a piece of residue evidence, reading, in this New York Post article written by Robert Roker in May 24, 2009, it mentions Ricky's line by saying the earliest phrase on the list comes from a 1951 episode of I Love Lucy. It was a line that Desi Arnaz, who played Ricky Ricardo, was to say many times on the show, as his wife entered into one madcap scheme after another. "Lucy, you've got some splaining to do." The author says that the line is said multiple times throughout the show. He even claims it's one of the first quoted television lines in history. The most interesting video I found was from Disney's The Brave Little Toaster movie, a film that haunted many young audiences due to its nightmare fuel scenes. A character says, in the words of Ricky Ricardo, then word for word mentions the line most people remember. When I was younger, I used to watch Nick at Night. I was in love with the old shows like I Dream of Jeannie, Welcome Back Kotter, I think it was on that, and especially I Love Lucy. I know without a shadow of a doubt, I heard "Lucy, you have some splaining to do," camera cuts to her "oh boy" face, or might have been followed by a "Ricky." Point is, it was there in the show and I would bet money on it. Friends theme song. This entry is in reference to the claps in the iconic Friends theme song. How many claps do you remember there being in the song's start? Do you remember there being 3 or 5, like some of the cast even remember? Well, no, it has always been 4, though this is debated due to the technicalities. This Reddit user replying to the Mandela effect states there is 5, but the first one is hidden by the other instruments, so it is very subtle. This was the topic of discussion while Friends was still on television, cause celebs and hosts would do 4 and it would never sound right. I got to be honest though, to my ears it only sounds like 4 claps and would sound off with 5 claps, though I could get why some would remember it this way. Van Gogh's ear. This one comes to us from Reddit stating, "So recently I visited the Van Gogh experience that was touring in my town. It was very cool. I suggest checking it out if it's anywhere near you." Before you get to the room that projected his arts, there were several panels that gave a little bit of his backstory, and I think I stumbled on a Mandela effect. I distinctly remember that he had cut off his ears and mailed it to a woman who had rejected him. As it turns out, he cut it off in the middle of a bar fight with another man. Boss move. And then gave it to a woman he didn't even know that worked at a nearby brothel. Like Go Mandela fix, it's a small change, but curious if anyone remembers him mailing his ear to a woman that rejected him. Well, I just looked it up. Nobody actually knows why he cut off his ear. I was always taught he cut off his ear to propose to the girl he was in love with, although it seems nobody knows whether or not this is actually true. And well, for obvious reasons, Van Gogh isn't here to tell us why he did it. Spider-Man Nintendo 64. This entry is in regards to the simply titled Spider-Man for the Nintendo 64. The plastic game case artwork presented Spider-Man climbing up a high-rise building, looking directly at you, the player. Though here is where the Mandela effect comes in. Some believe that the art found on the game case was also on the cartridge itself. They remember seeing Spider-Man as they inserted the game into the Nintendo, but this isn't the case, as Spider-Man is nowhere to be seen on its artwork. It's simply the skyscraper, puzzling many fans. Some say that it's obviously disappeared, as showcasing the skyscraper alone didn't make any sense. Another Mandela effect pertaining to Spider-Man revolves around his name. Some remember Spider-Man being spelled altogether without a dash or a space in the middle, but if we go and search his name on any site, it will appear with a dash or a space. Apparently the superhero always had a dash or space in his name, though many swear it looks more natural when it's spelled all together. What do you guys think? Richard Simmons. American fitness expert Richard Simmons, popular in the 80s, was a well-known public figure in the exercise industry, recognized for his wild, colorful, and enthusiastic demeanor, also popularizing weight loss programs in the general public, most notably through his line of aerobic tapes, called Sweatin' to the Oldies. Most people remember him sporting headbands and wristbands in his exercise videos, though now that some are beginning to rewatch his stuff, they are dumbfounded when they see that he had never worn them in any of his recordings. Interesting. Now that I think about it, he really doesn't wear head or wristbands. I tried googling this and I found a lot of pics of people on Richard Simmons costumes, which often include both a head and wristbands, but nothing for him. In fact, I don't actually think I've ever seen him wear those, but I think he's often depicted this way in parody, namely in that one episode of Rocko's Modern Life.
Okay, people, let's go. Let's go. Don't just stand there like slugs on a cabbage.
What does Brain always say to Pinky? I and my husband both distinctly remember Pinky, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" Tonight, we were watching the new Animaniacs, and he says, "Are you pondering what I'm pondering?" At first, we thought it was just a new rewrite, but I decided to look it up, and it's always been pondering. I cannot find anything where he says thinking, and that's quote, though I did find several memes. That's all I've been able to find though. I've asked several friends, and it seems pretty evenly split between people who remember thinking versus pondering.
Pinky and the Brain will be right back after these messages.
I personally remember watching this series on my PSP on this app called Crackle, where you could basically watch free movies and shows. I do specifically remember him saying thinking, though I could see why I may have mixed up the two, as they essentially have the same meaning. Let me know what you all remember in the comments.
Are you pondering what I'm pondering?
I think so, Brain, but I get all clammy inside the tent.
Sigmund Freud would have had a field day with you, Pinky.
Oh, like sports then, did he?
The plan.
Raggedy Ann. American author Johnny Gruelle developed the character of Raggedy Ann, who appeared in a number of novels for young children that he both authored and illustrated, creating the iconic doll of the character. According to legend, when his daughter Marcella discovered an old faceless doll that had once belonged to her aunt in the attic, Gruelle got the inspiration for the famous toy. Gruelle painted the doll a face, sewed buttons for eyes, and gave her the name Raggedy Ann. Sadly, Marcella contracted diphtheria, a serious infection caused by strains of bacteria in 1915, at the age of just 13, after coming into contact with a tainted vaccination needle. Now, many people remember the doll having a very distinguishing feature, that's being freckles. Yeah, many people remember Raggedy Ann with bright red freckles on her face, although she never had freckles on her face of any sorts. Though in one variation, she does have single dots on the side of her eyes, but never full-on freckles. Do any of you guys remember the doll having red freckles? The Vitruvian Man. Italian Renaissance artist Leonardo da Vinci created a drawing known as the Vitruvian Man. The artwork shows a guy in two superimposed poses with his arms and legs apart, and is inscribed in both a circle and a square. It was inspired by the works of the ancient Roman architect Vitruvius. The Mandela effect here is that some remember him having 3 arms on each side instead of just 2. But no, this isn't the case in the original drawing. He only has 4 arms. Memes creating Mandela effects for movies and TV shows, Wednesday, Zoolander, etc. I was watching Wednesday the other day with some friends. I have not seen it before, and we got to the famous dance scene. I had just assumed all of this time that the sped up version of Lady Gaga's song Bloody Mary was from the scene, referring to the TikTok trend showcasing Wednesday dancing to this specific Lady Gaga song. But it isn't. Instead, it's the song Goo Goo Muck by The Cramps. But not only that, one of my friends who had already seen the show also forgot that Bloody Mary wasn't actually from the show. It was solely from memes and stuff. Same thing is happening with Zoolander, a popular meme now. I'm sure you've all seen it. It is a scene from Zoolander with a new song spliced in. Are we entering an era where memes will cause Mandela effects with popular movies and shows? A decade from now, will people be like, what? I could have sworn that this song was in Zoolander. Travis the Chimp incident. This entry found on Reddit is in reference to the Travis the Chimp incident that happened on February 16th, 2009, when the chimp turned on his owner's friend by attacking her morbidly. He was then taken out by police. Travis was an animal actor, appearing in numerous shows and even commercials. He had been surrounded by people all of his life and was accustomed to them. A neighbor even claimed that he used to play around and wrestle with the chimp. He further stated that the chimp was very attentive to its owner and always knew when to stop when he got too rough. Though it didn't stop him on that day. The story went so viral that it was referenced in Jordan Peele's Nope, which contains a grotesque chimp scene. The post reads, "I am so confused right now. I am watching a video about the Travis the Chimp incident from 2009, and I could have sworn that the victim, Charlotte Nash, passed away a few years after the incident, around 2014 through 2015, because her body rejected the surgical recovery. I remember thinking how it was so upsetting and such a shame that after all the recovery she passed so soon. But in a video today, it was mentioned that Charlotte Nash is still alive and well, and that's caught me off guard. I did some research and apparently she never passed away. I'm so happy that in this timeline she's still alive, but it's so confusing because I thought she passed away. Did anyone else think this?" Call of Duty map. In Call of Duty Black Ops 2, there's a map called Standoff. The map made its way into the newer game titled Black Ops Cold War, released in 2020. This brought nostalgia to those who remembered and loved playing on the map, though upon replaying it, one professional Call of Duty player spotted something new on their horizon. It was a bright, yellow public sign pointing away, which he had never seen before, so he tweeted about it, garnishing the attention of many fans who, like himself, were denying that it was ever in the original game Black Ops 2. Nadeshots even reposted the tweet, stating that it was the strongest case for the Mandela effect he had ever seen. How can these people who have remembered these maps so well for the sake of being professional gamers get this wrong? If you go back to the original map, you can even find this exact yellow sign that's supposedly new. There's literally old recorded footage of them playing on the map before and even encountering the strange yellow post. Why were they suddenly forgetting? Though lots of people still swear that it was later added on, and that they don't remember it ever being there. Disney's. Many remember an apostrophe being used when referring to Disney's films. For example, the cover of The Lion King reading Disney's The Lion King, as shown here, or Disney's The Little Mermaid, Disney's Lilo and Stitch, Disney's Pocahontas, etc. But it has never been spelled out like this on the front covers of those popular Disney titles. It has always been spelled as Disney Aladdin, not Disney's Aladdin. Disney's The Lion King never existed. It has always been Disney The Lion King, which just sounds off. Was this a simple grammar mistake? Do you guys remember it being Disney's? Now, what's weird is that things like Disney's books and games are titled the way many are remembering it. Like The Little Mermaid, the game for the Genesis, is titled Disney's The Little Mermaid, and the Disney Aladdin game for the Genesis is titled Disney's Aladdin. I mean, it's like they're purposely doing this. Who's they? I don't know, Illuminati? Certain scientists? It could be anyone, even our own brains. Mandela effect and mass gaslighting theory. Disclaimer. I am a full believer that the Mandela effect is real and that there is a multi-dimensional component to it. If that bothers you, I don't care. Go watch CNN or something. Okay, so I was born in 1990. I distinctly remember the Bernstein Bears, Luke, I Am Your Father, and Sex and the City. And I grew up in New York City during the peak years of that show. It was Sex and the City, among many other examples. It's even weirder to me that the official explanation that so many individuals are willing to co-sign is just, nope, you're wrong, your memory is unreliable, etc. This is gaslighting 101. Gets people to question their memories, question their reality, rewrite history, and then accuse them of not having an accurate perception. It crossed my mind that the deliberate use of the Mandela effect would be an incredibly convenient way to create a chasm between those who remember the quote-unquote old world and those who are born into this quote-unquote new world, rewrite historical events 30, 50 years from now, and show that those who remember things being different are either dead or crazy. Slowly and deliberately break down people's ability to trust their own minds, much the way our current social model understands how narcissism works on the individual level. And of course, that would make us much more vulnerable and make it easy to control us through other forms of propaganda, as well as to discredit anyone who dissents from official narratives. Just some food for thought. The Rock quote. Can you smell what The Rock is cooking? This is a famous quote attributed to The Rock during this WWE era. Though now he's more known for starring in big Hollywood movies, many were fans before his sudden rise in popularity and remember this quote by heart. Though he has never said this, what he actually states is, if you smell what The Rock is cooking, not can you smell what The Rock is cooking, leaving some fans confused as it changes the meaning to the phrase. It's even quoted the wrong way on merchandise, news articles, and more. Even the description of videos presenting the quote have it wrong. Taking a look at the actual video, he himself states, if you smell what The Rock is cooking. The North Pole doesn't exist. That's right. If you open up Google Earth right now and try to find the massive ice cap in the very tip of the northern hemisphere, you'll just find water. Here's Greenland and Iceland, but that's it. There's no ice cap. Where did it go? Where is the North Pole? Many people who use Google Earth remember being able to see the ice cap in the North Pole, but are surprised to not find them anywhere when revisiting the virtual globe. The weirdest thing just happened to me. So I was discussing with my friend how I remember the North Pole being a landmass on a map and how it's a Mandela effect because it actually never was. I then found a picture on Google that illustrated my point. It showed the North Pole as a landmass. I shit you not, as I turned my phone around to show him the picture, it changed. The landmass disappeared from the map right in front of my eyes, and now I can't find the original photo. I have absolutely no explanation for this other than the Matrix is absolutely f***ing with me right now. The simple explanation is that it was never there to begin with. What we refer to as the North Pole is not a stable set of landmass covered in ice, but it rather changes in size and location throughout time, which may be the reason why Google Earth doesn't include it, as well as some physical globes. Unlike Antarctica, which is an actual landmass, though it changes in shape due to other reasons though. For me, the problem is not whether or not it's solid. I remember old world maps as showing the Arctic ice cap, the same way they show the Antarctic, rather than having to look up specific maps like your examples. Now, all the world maps I can find don't show the Arctic ice spread out over the other continents. Basically, the maps I remember seeing when I was in school and up until last fall all had the countries sandwiched between two areas for the Arctic and Antarctic, at the top and bottom. Also, the Arctic area is much smaller in general, and it looks like all the other continents have shifted slightly north, filling in some of the space that used to be the Arctic. Another explanation is that some maps or globes may have contained an outline or an example of the changing northern polar ice caps that, of course, weren't accurate, but they portrayed them for the sake of education, explaining why some remember the North Pole always being in maps since childhood. In the song Boom Boom Pow by the Black Eyed Peas, Fergie has one line that many remember differently, including me, and I personally remember watching this music video multiple times on television. Right after will.i.am's verse, she begins hers, and then states, "I'm so 2008, you're so 2000 and late." This is an iconic part of the song that many claim to remember by heart. So this has to be the correct lyrics, right? These are the actual lyrics. "I'm so 3008, you're so 2000 and late." 3008? Some claim that the reason she did this is to keep the song relevant to the time it was listened to. Say for instance she did say 2008, that would have aged poorly as opposed to saying 3008, which is a far time from now, relative to our human lifespans of course. Wait, what? Yeah, this is weird. I distinctly remember hearing that song sometime in 2008. It could have come out before then though, and wondering if they'd performed the song in later years when that line wouldn't make any sense. I definitely remember hearing it before 2009 too. Push Pops. Those are the names for the ice cream treat things in the tubes that you would push out and eat. They are actually labeled as push up. Yes, a push up, not a push pop. Go ahead and search it up yourself. I myself was pretty puzzled when I saw that it was push up. Tinkerbell intro updates. This entry has made its rounds online multiple times, with people trying to debunk it, claiming that they are confusing it with the menu screen for Disney's DVDs, though some argue that they vividly remember it being the intro to many popular Disney films. Now, the Mandela effect in question covers a scene where the Disney logo is over the iconic bright blue background. Tinkerbell then comes flying across the screen and uses her wand to create the halo behind the castle and proceeds to dot the letter I on Disney's logo. But when rewatching the blue iconic Disney intro, Tinkerbell is nowhere to be found. The arch behind them is made automatically without the character appearing. The strange thing is that there are tons of intros that are similar to what people are describing.
This Disney
There's also a strange one, where there's only a flying white dot that creates the Disney logo. Here's an exact recreation that was not created by Disney, but was animated by ROM30 VFX. Remember, this doesn't exist. This is simply a recreation based off multiple accounts of Mandela effect believers. Commenters state it was a little different for each movie. Sometimes her wand would work and other times she had to get it working. She never looked at the audience like that though. She would just giggle and fly off. I was born in 2002 and this is the version I remember. Granted, Disney has many different intros. This one and her getting the wand to work are the ones I remember. Tinkerbell was and forever will be in my top favorite characters. The fact that they're saying it never existed makes me feel as though my childhood was a lie. I grew up on VHS and eventually it transferred to DVD. Sex and the City. Here's a classic. Many remember this nostalgic 2000s show being titled Sex and the City, as a majority referred to the show by that title. Even award shows would call it by that name. All this only to find out that it's actually titled Sex and the City, not in. Although many people have merch and other things that title it as Sex and the City. Are these pieces of residue from another timeline, or is it just a bootleg copy that some guy messed up on? The simple explanation is that we may just have slurred the word and to the point that it sounded like in. And in. If you see it 10 times fast, you're bound to mess up. It's pretty hard, but that's just one explanation. There are also pop culture references to the name of the show, including Futurama and Family Guy.
Me neither. Now, Sex in the City? That's funny.
This is Michael Patrick King's first draft of the Sex and the City movie.
This next one covers the artist Tyler the Creator, and specifically his name. Some fans don't remember Tyler the Creator's full name containing a comma after the name Tyler, though if you go search him up on Google, it appears with the comma as well as his Spotify and other music platforms. I personally always remember it being there though. Another Mandela effect pertaining to him as well comes from his album Igor and its cover art. Many remember Tyler being shirtless in the cover art, but if you go back and look at it, he's wearing a black shirt, which many find off. Could it be that it's simply blended in and people are simply noticing the effect after a while? I don't know. How do you guys recall it being? Was he sporting a shirt or was he shirtless? Hi y'all, writing from the UK, and I want to tell you about what I can only describe as a timeline change that happened to me in real time about a week ago. If this isn't a Mandela effect, I do not know what it is. About a week ago, my 4-year-old daughter was watching a kids television show called Tempo on BBC iPlayer. It was a basic CGI fest with anthropomorphic animals. Apparently, if I recall correctly, something to do with fixing vehicles. I walked in and saw this show with my own eyes on her television in her room. She had told me what it was, and thinking the title was odd, I pressed the button on my remote to bring up the details, progress bar, name, options, etc. Sure enough, the show is called Tempo. Anyway, the next day she asks if I could put it on her TV because she wanted to chill in her room and just watch it. I say sure, run up to it and put it on, and guess what? No Tempo. Not on iPlayer, not on YouTube. I googled it and absolutely nothing, except for some 1960s live action stuff. Me and her mom spent an age googling it and asking my daughter what she could recall. On top of what I had already seen of the show, we both remember it, we both saw it, and my daughter is disappointed that it has gone. Except it hasn't just gone. The damn thing never existed, except it did a week ago. Not the first time a Mandela effect happened to me in real time, but really gave me a chill. Stranger Things. The show follows the residents of a small town in 1980s Indiana, where they are plagued by a hostile alternate dimension known as the Upside Down, after a nearby human experimentation facility opens a gateway between the Upside Down and the normal world. Starring actress Millie Bobby Brown and actors Finn Wolfhard and Noah Schnapp, who have gained massive popularity online. Now, the creator of the series, the Duffer Brothers, are known to digitally alter things after an episode's completion in order to fix plot holes and mistakes, but claim that they've never changed the stories. They have also declined to say how many episodes they've altered and the reasons behind them. Though obviously you can compare the episodes from the digital version to the physical copies and notice the differences, as they admit themselves. This is all pertaining to season 4 and the seasons before that. So the episode in question is titled The Weirdo on Maple Street, where they claim a scene has changed. Nancy and Barb go over to Steve's, where they, specifically Nancy and Steve, start making out, totally third-wheeling Barb, so she waits by the pool. while someone decides to creep on her with a camera. This guy's name is Jonathan. He then looks up towards the house to find Nancy undressing, getting ready to get with Steve, so he takes a pic of her in that vulnerable state. What if I told you that that scene never occurred? Many people online swear this was real, but was simply edited out because of cancel culture and to make Netflix not look bad, basically to save face. But the showrunners have publicly stated that they've never altered that scene in the show. What actually takes place then? Well, he simply looks towards Nancy's direction, but then goes back to taking pictures of Barb dipping her feet in the pool. Even articles chalked this up to censorship editing, bashing the practice and the show. Though they were later corrected by the creators, they were told that the scene in question never existed in the first place. Do any of you guys remember Jonathan taking a picture of Nancy getting undressed? Or was it simply a stare and then back to pictures of Barb in the pool? Pink Bunny Battery. Think about that, Pink Bunny Battery. When I say that, what brand comes into mind? Energizer, right? That bunny is rocking some shades and bangs on a drum as it walks. This is a classic brand mascot that many remember from old commercials. Some are straight up nightmare fuel though. Look at this thing, it's got soul-piercing eyes. While some are confused to find that Duracell, its competitor, also has a pink bunny mascot that is powered by the brand's battery. The mascot was even created before the Energizer bunny in 1973. The copyright had expired for a while, leaving Energizer to create a parody of the mascot, which was followed by a legal dispute between the two. Do any of you guys remember Duracell having a bunny as its mascot as well, or was it simply just the Energizer bunny that existed? Let me know in the comments. What if this is an experiment? I had a thought. What if Mandela effects are part of an experiment being performed? So they started with changing small minor things like logos, and now they are changing bigger things like anatomy, geography, history. And the premise of the experiment could be about whether or not we believe our memories or are easily manipulated by the new information. Like, can we hold on to our truth, or would we just go like, yeah, I guess if that's what the wiki says, then sure, just wild how a million people thought otherwise. Like taking a lab rat and changing the maze and information. Airplanes are now different. So this is an effect covering the build of modern airplanes and how they have possibly changed. A group of people in the Mandela effect community started to point out that new passenger jets had massive engines that somehow looked like they were too far forward on the wing, almost popping out. From what they remembered in their timeline, it was much farther back. They recalled the engine being a bit smaller and more in the center middle of the wing. Here's the interesting update on that, coming from Reddit user Epic Journeyman, explaining how the Mandela effect community may have stumbled on a massive airplane fault. It turns out the Mandela effect community noticed the flaw with the Boeing 737 MAX and possibly other passenger jets before it was made known publicly. The jet engines really are too far forward. An article was published by Forbes yesterday that explains that the likely reason for the two recent crashes of Boeing 737 was that the decision was made to use larger engines that required them to move much farther forward and depend on a computer flight assistant system to keep the plane from stalling by nudging the nose downward independent of pilot control. An MIT expert raised the question in mind of whether Boeing's fundamental design mistake was the size and placement of the 737 MAX engine. This line from the article raises the point that so many people have reported as an effect. The jet engines were never this far forward on passenger jets before. It would have never been an issue at all if the information explaining why and when this change to aircraft design was made had been more rapidly available. I propose that this information was deliberately buried and made difficult to obtain by people not involved in the design because Boeing and other companies did not want conjecture and public debate to create quote-unquote bad press that may hurt their profits or slow production down. These planes carrying passengers traditionally would have sacrificed performance for safety and would have chosen the ability to have as much control of the plane in the event of engine/power loss over fuel economy and powered performance. This may really have been a case of industry keeping the wraps on the information they didn't want to go to the public. Edit. For those who don't know, the location of jet engines on passenger jets was a hot topic last year in the Mandela effect community and was even voted the Mandela effect of the year for 2018. Let me read you this quote from the Forbes article referenced. Boeing engineers found that under certain conditions, the 737 MAX's engines, which are larger and located higher and closer to the front, boost the chances that the aircraft would tilt upward too steeply, causing the plane to stall. This is great news. It means that the Mandela Effect community can help unmasking corporate failures and cover-ups. The point here is not proving that the Mandela Effects are real or that the Matrix exists. The point is checking out our doubts and finding the truth. Let's call ourselves the Wardens, Memory Police. Don't mess with our memories. We're watching y'all. So, did the world actually end in 2012? Well, it was the year scientists at CERN finally found the Higgs boson, the particle Stephen Hawking predicted could destroy the universe, or in his own words, cause the universe to undergo a catastrophic vacuum decay. Well, what would happen if we destroyed the universe? Would we know? Maybe CERN accidentally created a black hole that sucked us in and we've been living inside it. Physicists actually believe that might be a possibility. There's the old cliche argument that nothing has felt right since 2012. I agree with this. Maybe it has something to do with growing up and getting older, but ever since then, it seems like the world descends more and more into chaos each day. There's some sort of calamity happening almost daily. I think we're in a simulation. I think after the universe was destroyed by CERN, our collective consciousness was moved into a computer-generated copy of our world. The copy is almost exact. The minor differences we notice are what we call Mandela effects. There was someone on 4chan a while back who claimed that they were one of the 23 scientists at CERN responsible for creating the Mandela effect. They claimed that the planet was destroyed and we were placed in a simulated world. The thing I thought was most interesting though is that whoever this person was described reality as being like a set of Russian dolls, where there are worlds nestled within one another, or simulations within simulations. In the SpongeBob episode Pickles, there's a scene where Bubble Bass is exposed for hiding pickles underneath his tongue. This is a pretty popular and iconic moment in the show, generating tons of memes on current day social media. In this clip, there's a pink fish woman who claims that she sees her car keys underneath his tongue by shouting out, "And there's my car keys," suggesting that he had stolen it from her and hid it underneath his tongue. But when the camera cuts to it, there are only pickles, leading some to conclude that this line was never in the original scene, claiming that it sounds out of place, it's badly cut, and intentionally placed there afterwards. Take a look.
He's been hiding the pickles under his tongue the whole time.
And there's the pickles from last time, too!
And there's my car keys!
Some also recall other customers, the ones in the background, shouting out an item that Bubble Bass had stolen from them and hid underneath his tongue, shouting things like, "There's my wallet," or "There's my shoe." But when you rewatch it, they don't say a word, and instead angrily rush towards Bubble Bass. Do you guys remember this pink fish appearing in that scene and saying that Bubble Bass stole her car keys? Let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Many remember Disney's 1951 Alice in Wonderland, a classic that many refer to and some like to quote. A memorable character that many recall and love is the Cheshire Cat, known for its creepy grin and trippy colors. Well, many people remember the cat saying this exact phrase to Alice, "We're all mad here," and then he laughs, insinuating that everyone there is crazy. But this isn't how it goes in a Disney film. What he actually states is, "Most everyone is mad here." Totally different from what people remember. There are pieces of quote-unquote residue that some say is proof of the original line existing in the film. From pop sockets, pins, stickers, shirts, and other pieces of art, they all contain this quote that doesn't appear anywhere in the Disney film. Even the original voice actor of the cat, Sterling Holloway, remembers it being "We're all mad here," as he says this exact line in a live-action version of the scene from a television segment. Take a look.
But I don't want to go among mad people.
Oh, my dear child, you can't help that. We're all mad here. Everybody's mad.
An interesting fact about this character is that it is believed to have been inspired by a carving of a grinning cat at a cathedral where Lewis Carroll, the writer of Alice in Wonderland, would attend as a child, due to his father being the pastor. The carving of the smiling cat may have slowly been embedded into his subconscious. Another strange Mandela effect connected to the movie revolves around her clothing. Some recall Alice wearing red or black striped leggings in the Disney film, an iconic feature of her look supposedly, but this isn't the case at all when watching the movie again. She is simply sporting white leggings. Do any of you guys recall her leggings having stripes in the animation? Here's a poster of the film depicting her in red striped leggings, though it doesn't appear this way in the movie. There's also the fact that many recall Tweedledee and Tweedledum wearing propeller hats, though in the film they are depicted wearing hats with flags on the top, not propellers. Nightmare on Elm Street Mandela effect. Me and my mom were watching a Mandela effect video that includes Freddy's sweater. She claims that a red and green tarp covers the house, like a termite fumigation tent on the house. in the ending scene after Nancy leaves. However, it just happens to the car and the mom is snatched through the window. I remember it the way it is, but my mom does not. Does everyone remember it like this? Edit. OMG, I guess my mom uncovered a brand new Mandela effect, since we have some people here who remember this ending. No, it is not an alternate ending that currently exists, and it is not the 2010 remake. Edit 2. Full rundown of the scene. It begins the same as the current ending, but when Nancy gets in the car, she sees her mom getting pulled into the house by Freddy. Then a termite tent with Freddy's signature red and green stripes covers the house. Nancy screams and then the car itself gets the tarp over it, like in the new ending. My mom says that it 100% did happen because the ending made her scared of houses with termite tarps over them because of the movie. One reply states, "No, are you serious? The termite thing is gone from the house now? These Mandela effects and reality changes never fail to get me so beyond shook. Now I want to go rent the movie just to see the scene because that is so freaking scary that it would be gone." Me and my sis used to watch it all the time in childhood, and that termite red and green circusy looking tent always stood out to us because we used to say how it's strange that somehow that tarp over the house used to make the scene even creepier for us. Drake Mandela effect. There has been a Mandela effect making its rounds online, claiming that Drake has never done this hand gesture in his music videos before, where he waves his hand right in front of the camera while rapping. Although many remember him doing it while rapping his songs and videos and performances. You even have parody artists doing it. Though it is hard to find throughout his multiple hit music videos, you will eventually come across a similar hand movement in God's Plan and No Lie. Though this isn't exactly what people remember him doing. I don't know if anyone knows of the YouTuber Lil Moco. He was very popular around the 2012s for his funny Drake impressions, and I remember him doing that exact hand movement when impersonating Drake and finding it spot on and hilarious. Home Alone screaming scene. In the film Home Alone, there's a scene where the main character Kevin applies aftershave to his face, which causes a stinging and burning sensation, causing him to scream. Many remember this scene only happening once in the film, but there are two instances in which this scene occurs in the movie, and they are eerily the exact same, throwing some people off. I always remembered it happening once, while the Drifters version of White Christmas played, but apparently, having watched the movie recently, it happens twice. I absolutely do not remember two instances of this happening from my memory of watching this as a kid, lol. The Hunger Games map changed? My mom was rewatching one of the Hunger Games movies, and I remembered this map that I had seen on the districts and the books, and brought it up to her because I remember being very shocked by the map. It was shaped like the US and was overlaid on a US map, but both of us vividly remember the districts being circular, with the capital at the center, with 12 to 13 rings around it, each being a district. I remember the train going straight through all of them. I tried googling it to see if anyone else had noticed this or if we were misremembering, but I couldn't find anything to suggest that the map was originally circular. I found an image that is similar to what both of us remember it being like, but obviously it's not actually the Hunger Games map. Anyone remember this too? A reply states, "I am with you here. I never remembered it being the United States. The circles sound familiar with the train running through them to the capital in the center. I would have remembered if it was a map of the US, even if my circle map memory was wrong. This is really strange. Looked again. I am 99.99% sure on this now, that the map has drastically changed." Another effect involving the Hunger Games touches on a scene where all the participants are standing on the platforms waiting for the games to begin. Many remember seeing one of the participants step off too early, and as a result, they were blown up, a scene that many remember shocking them when watching the movie for the first time. But if you go back and rewatch that exact same scene, nothing of the sort happens. Nobody is blown up for stepping off the platforms too early. The scene has apparently never been in the film. Do you guys remember some guy getting blown up, or is this a mix-up with another popular film? Maybe another dystopian book film adaptation. Nikola Tesla, the most underrated inventor in history, some might say. From charging your iPhone to opening up the fridge, he's the person to thank, as he was known for his contributions to the design of the modern alternating current electricity system, allowing for a steady supply of electricity to homes and appliances. After having a falling out with Thomas Edison due to his preferences of a less efficient but more profitable system at the time, he began a partnership with Thomas Edison's rival, and they both made the AC system mainstream, phasing out Edison's DC system. He even went on to create the first remote control boat that tricked people into thinking that he was performing a magic trick. He would sadly lose tons of money and go into debt when his investors backed out on his Tesla Tower project that would create a telecommunication system. All this after his patent for a radio communication system was stolen, most likely backed by Thomas Edison. This is where the Mandela effect comes into play. Tons of people remember him dying in a tragic accident, either from dying in a car wreck to dying in a fire, though his actual cause of death was due to heart failure at the age of 86 years old. He died alone and in pain as he refused to see a doctor. Interestingly, days after his death, his hotel room at the New Yorker that he had been living in was searched and seized by the FBI. They collected all his final documents and notes. The Old Testament tells a story about a man named Samson. In this story, it is said that God gave Samson incredible strength, enough to tear a lion apart with his bare hands when he encountered the angry creature, though his ultimate downfall would be due to Delilah, his girl who was bribed by the lords of the Philistines to find Samson's Achilles heel, his weak point. He kept on misleading her until he finally revealed that it was all due to his long hair. Here's where people are confused. Who cut Samson's hair to make him weak? People are most keen on saying that it was his own girl Delilah who cut his hair in the middle of the night as he was sleeping, but it was actually a servant who was ordered to cut Samson's hair, not Delilah. Jesus was a carpenter. Growing up in the church, I always thought that Jesus was a carpenter, and so do tons of other people. Even in films, he was depicted this way, like in Passion of the Christ, where they show him making a table for Mary. Johnny Cash also has a song, Jesus Was a Carpenter. It's just always been depicted this way in the media. But the more you dig into the subject, you start to discover that he wasn't a carpenter at all. Jesus was actually a stonemason according to historians. Instead of using saws and nails, he most likely worked with squares and compasses, hammers and chisels to form the stone. The word tikton in Hebrew, meaning craftsman or builder, was mistranslated into meaning only carpenter according to scholars, so Jesus was a tikton, though I don't really believe this one to be a true Mandela effect, as it's more of a correction of what we once thought was true. Popeye's wind-up punch. Me and my friend were joking about hitting someone with the Waiata punch, and we're trying to find a gif portraying it, only to realize we can't find it. He's supposed to wind up his punch behind himself in a circular motion until his arms twist into a spring and then let the spring unwind into an uppercut. But after literal hours of searching, we can't find it, or any other cartoon character performing it specifically as stated. There's Donkey Kong and Rayman performing a similar move, but their arms don't twist into a spring, and I've seen no other posts discussing it. I really want to be proven wrong. Can anyone find it? DEA. When you think of those letters, you probably picture those narco-type shows and other films in pop culture. Now, what do you recall those letters standing for? What does it mean? Some would say Drug Enforcement Agency, right? You probably remember it that way and have heard it mentioned like that a couple of times, and so do lots of other people. But if you do a quick Google search, you'll find that it actually stands for Drug Enforcement Administration, not agency. I think people might be mixing this up with agent though. Drug enforcement agents do exist. They are even branded this way on the back of their jackets. Maybe some were using agent and agency interchangeably and made a mistake, as seen in these various news articles referring to them as the Drug Enforcement Agency. Boots Popsicle Recap. Many people remember there being a Boots Popsicle alongside the famous and prolific Dora Popsicle. The Boots Popsicle looked something like this and would have the iconic gumball eyes just like Dora's. Sadly, those never existed though. People have found quote-unquote evidence that the ice cream company producing these do in fact create popsicles based on multiple main characters of animated shows, like the Cosmo Bar from the Fairly Odd Parents existing and being sold, but not a popsicle of the specific main character Timmy Turner. Is this another case of the Mandela effect? I don't think so. It seems like they simply chose a funner character to create an ice cream bar for. Or did the Timmy Turner popsicle actually exist? Leave your thoughts in the comments. As for the Boots Popsicle, it may have been a short-lived thing that nobody took a picture of or kept any documentation on. But as of now, there is no evidence of the Boots Popsicle existing or being sold, though so many other cartoon characters were made into these famous popsicles. Nostalgia trip. Guy Fieri. This guy's a legend in the food television scene. Many people remember him for his unique hairstyle and another specific thing about his head, that being his world-famous visor, the one with flames on it. It fit perfectly with a spiky bleach hairdo, giving him a distinct look. The crazy thing about this is that he has never worn this visor in any of his hit television shows. It's like it never happened in the first place. There aren't any videos or photos of this guy sporting a black visor with flames on it. It just never happened. Though if you search up Guy Fieri hats, you'll get exactly what you're looking for. Even Filthy Frank, now known as Joji, cosplayed as Guy Fieri in a video and wore a black visor and a black shirt with flames on it. This article dubs him the bleach-haired, backward visor-wearing chef, though I don't remember him specifically either way. His forehead does look kind of empty now that you've mentioned it. Posted by Diamond Dash Trey. Holy shit, found Bernstein evidence while packing. I'm currently packing for a move. My husband and I are heavily streamlining our VHS collection. I found my old Bernstein Bears VHS, and the official label says both Steen and Stain. Stain appears on the front label, while Steen appears on the side. Also, and of less consequence, the label my mom puts on the plastic video cover reads Steen. I'm literally shaking right now. Anyone is free to test these images, they are totally unaltered. Ran it through some basic analysis looking for editing, and if it is an edit, then it's a really good one because it doesn't show any traces at all. Just putting that out there. What were your methods? He can tell because of the way it is. That's pretty neat. How neat is that? Pretty neat. Forbidden Uno move. Apparently, there's a move that many people thought was totally allowed in the game Uno, but outright isn't allowed according to the creators themselves, as the Uno Twitter account was exposing that it isn't part of their rules at all. One rule many people remember from the game is that if you don't have the card to play, you have to keep on drawing cards from the stack until you find the corresponding card. According to Uno themselves though, if you don't have a card to play, you're only required to draw one card from the stack and then allow the next person to go. I remember having to draw like 20 cards before being able to find a playable card, and it's like it only happens when you have 2 cards left. There's also that one that I personally don't recall but many others do, in which a rule states that if someone puts down a draw plus 4 card, you're allowed to put down a draw plus 2 card, and the next person is forced to draw 6 cards total. Apparently it has never been allowed in the game. You must always draw 4 cards if someone puts down that card. How I remembered the Mona Lisa. This is from an artist who redid the Mona Lisa painting to what he remembered it like. Hi, I'm a professional graphic designer and I stumbled on the Mandela effect and thought it was interesting. While I attribute most of them with false memory, I came across the Mona Lisa where someone claimed that the Mona Lisa never had a smile or smirk. I thought to myself, that's right, she never did. So I went straight to Google Images and searched the Mona Lisa. The first picture showed up, which was its Wikipedia. I clicked on it to get a full-sized view, and the hairs on my arms stood up. It seriously looked like someone went into Photoshop and liquefied her face to make her smile/smirk. It just doesn't look like how I remembered it. Also, I never even seen her with a veil on. The Mona Lisa really fascinated me before, and I would watch lots of documentaries on it. She was always depicted as a mysterious person, to the point they wonder if it was a self-portrait of Leonardo da Vinci himself. To me, she always had a blank, unexpressive, and enigmatic face, no smile. In fact, the one I see smirking now gives me the creeps. So I downloaded the photo and got to work to try and depict how I remembered her. First off, I never remember her wearing a veil, so I photoshopped it off. Then I had to get rid of her smirk. On the left side is the real Mona Lisa. On the right side is my rendition. This maybe is just all of us having some false memory, but I cannot get this one out of my head, especially for someone who studied the Mona Lisa and loves art. Your thoughts? Please keep the conversation civil.